Yes, yo. Another Saturday night. Therefore, it's another Saturday night shoot the breeze. Want to shout out first and foremost. Want to shout out Buana, who, as you guys learned, his mother passed away, and she's being laid to rest today. I I voice message with Buana yesterday to extend my condolences again, give him some strength to deal with this. As you guys know, I dealt with it fairly recently, except with my father who passed away. So, shout out to Buana, man. Hoping for the best for him. Hopefully, he was able to make it through this tough day. Shout out to Brother Bakari. Brother Bakari keeps in touch, as I pointed out to you guys before. Shout out to him. Today is his birthday. So happy birthday to Brother Bakari. So shout out to Buana at this unfortunate time, and shout out to Brother Bakari for being able to see another year and celebrate a birthday. So shout out to them both. But shout out to you guys also. Those of you who were here live last week in the chat. It was only me and Black Steel on the panel last week like that. I think Sister Cheryl came in later. But it was just a few of us who were there. But shout out to you guys for being here. Shout out to you guys for listening in the playback. We got some good numbers on the last episode of Shoot the Breeze, episode that was 223. So shout out to all you guys. I see Kofi the Black Critic out in the chat saying, "What's up, family? What's up to you, Kofi the Black Critic?" I haven't seen you in a minute, Kofi. Seen you on the Discord, but I haven't seen you do a live or anything in a while. Hope all is well with you. You know what it is. I like to come on here and style the show to let you guys know what we're discussing tonight. By the way, if you can hear my voice, drop a 1 for me. Let me know that my voice is being transmitted over the digital airwaves of YouTube, as Stephen A. Smith would say. Tonight's show, we're discussing how it's different with a white person. This is a conversation about ICE and recent events that ICE have perpetrated on American people for this 2026. We're going to talk about Pan-Africanists needing to understand that Israel is a garrison state that monitors African countries and provides surveillance and military training for dangerous neo-colonial states. So we're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to discuss Israel again, recognizing Somaliland, yet another example of Zionist colonial management in Africa. We're going to discuss medical racism. We're going to discuss, and this was supposed to be discussed last week, but we're going to discuss an African beauty standard that can only be built from the ground up. All of those great topics we have for you. And again, if you guys would like to have your topics discussed, 2 things. Join the Discord, navigate to the Shoot the Breeze topics channel, and that's not a channel for chit chat, by the way. It's a channel just to produce your topic. Shoot the Breeze topic, add attachments, preferably from YouTube or X or maybe TikTok, and your topics will get discussed here too. Second thing you can do, join the panel. When posts are put up and I know that person is not going to come up. That plays a part. I'll put it like that. It's easier when I know that, oh yeah, they're going to come up and they're going to defend or discuss their take on the topic, right? So those are the 2 things. We're going to start this email thing this week coming. So if you're in the Discord, you'll see something about it. If you're not yet, when you join, you'll be directed to it. I want to start doing it old school, utilizing email addresses to get the word out on new episodes, on news. I've been quietly putting together a newsletter, but I need I need more, how do I put this? I need more sources. I want to put together a newsletter that gives the opposing viewpoints from people on the ground in these various Black equals African nations. Want to get the event, one view, and the opposing view. That's taking me a little bit more time, but when I get that together, I get that rolling, those emails will be useful. I want you guys to share the show, share the newsletter. Let's get people, involved, included in what we're doing. Anyway, with that said, man, let's start the show officially. And on the other side, I'll drop Shoot the Breeze topic number 1, as well as introduce any and all of my panelists. So do stay tuned. In the meantime, hit the like button, share the show on social media, let a friend know, call a friend, let a friend know what you're doing this Saturday night. So stay tuned.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio. Welcome to the Bitter Medicine Podcast, where it's all about Black empowerment. Our show focuses on Black news and entertainment, arts, science, economics, history, people, and strategies that uplift, empower, and motivate Africans within the diaspora. And now your host, whose favorite color is black, Goku.
Welcome back to the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Koku. Just want to remind you guys before we get the show rolling that this show is part of a podcast network called KWAZ Radio. There are other shows on the network you are invited to tune into.
This is D Webb with the Harsh Reality Podcast, asking you to tune in where we tackle the news of the day that affects our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the Pro-Black Perspective, where Black problems are addressed with Black solutions.
Greetings, fam. Tune in to The Learning Curve with me, the Revolutionary Matron on KWAZ Radio.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Yeah, make sure you also tune in to Brother Bakari, BBN Network, Forecast Radio. He's on all the time, like at least twice a week. Realm in the Bush, she's on these days from the continent, as well as, last but not least, Kofi, the Black Critic. Make sure you guys are tuned in to all of these different programs on KWAZ Radio. With that said, man, if you'd like to join the panel, just hit the link pinned to the top of the chat, and you can join the panel this evening. So far, it's only me, but that doesn't stop anything. Let's just get right to it, man. I'm going to drop Shoot the Breeze topic number 1. This is a timely one because of what's going on right now. This is our hot topic this week. So whenever you see that fire emoji before the Shoot the Breeze topic, you know it's our hot topic of the week. Shoot the Breeze topic number 1 says, it's different with a white person. Simply that. It's different with a white person. This comes with 3 different attachments. We'll go through all of them. Right? We're going to start with X. That's Etan Thomas on X first. You guys should be well aware of what's going on. Let me make sure you guys can see my screen because they changed how this goes now. Now you should be able to see what's on my screen. We're looking at this tweet from Ethan Thomas. It says, ICE has operated as terrorists for a long time. 32 people died in ICE custody in 2025. They killed Keith Porter on New Year's for shooting a gun in the air, as many people do to bring in New Year. But it's good that so many are coming to this realization now. We'll watch and then we'll discuss.
Such a key, it takes me back to watching The Time to Kill when I was younger, and watching scene with Matthew McConaughey talking about Samuel L. Jackson's daughter and everything that happened to him, and he's going through it, and he's saying she's laying there lifeless, in her own blood and their own semen and everything like that. He's painting the picture, and you see the mostly white audience, how they're responding to jurors and everything like that. And then he says, now imagine that she's white. And everything changed. And I thought that was really such a key, illuminating aspect for a lot of people who didn't want to admit that it is different with a white person. You know what I mean? And that's that whole value of life that is just so hard to, when you're looking at, how many Palestinians are slaughtered every single day. You're looking at, this a case like this where we're being killed by the police every single day, where ICE is, just brutalizing and killing and rounding up, brown people every single day, and none of that really gets the problem. Now, I'm not saying that it's still not terrible, but it's just the fact that there's something about watching the coverage of it, and I'm just like, they didn't feel any of this. So just all the 10 cases that I just read about last week, when when they did the same thing to ICE, did the same thing to brown people. It's a horrible reality of America as far as whose lives matter.
Yeah, everything you said is absolutely true, and that is ever present. And then there's also a layer of that, from a protester perspective, is she could have been anybody who is at any protest. Like, she could be at a future protest.
Right.
And I think that might have hit some people too, white people in particular, who may be at a protest. And yeah, that could be me, because I've covered protests since Trayvon. And I have to tell you, I've seen that dynamic many times of someone in a car, not listening to a cop, driving away, just moving away. And the worst I've ever seen was a cop bust the window of a car. That's actually Jason Bagshaw. People in DC all know Bagshaw. They hate him. And Bagshaw busted a window of a van during the 2020 George Floyd uprising. And it was totally illegal. He should have been in jail, but they weren't even kind of going away. But I've never seen, someone open fire. And my analysis is pretty simple. That cop, what hit him at that moment was, you're defying my order? You're not complying with my order? Brrr. She wasn't murdered because he feared for his life. She was murdered because he feared for his ego. That's why, she was murdered, And I was wondering in the back, does it, even being a woman, may add a layer to that, the way when a black person defies a white cop, they may have rage go a little bit higher than if a white person defied a white cop. But what we could say 100%, been looking at that video, is that he did not fear for his life. Okay, that is clear. But his ego was bruised. How dare you defy my order? And that happened in a split second. But that's who he is, and that's who they are.
And that's the part of, in my book, Police Brutality and White Supremacy, you talked about it earlier. I looked at examined the case of Willie McCoy. And if you remember Willie McCoy, he was asleep at a Taco Bell. He was literally sleeping. That's what he was doing. Pulled over to the side, not like, obstructing traffic or anything like that. He was literally pulled off to the side and there was a wellness check. Can you check on him because he's sleeping there and it looks like something might be wrong? I guess maybe the car is running or whatever it was. And the police came there and they saw his, you know the story. They saw the cell phone, thought it could be a gun, and just started unloading in the car. But I didn't hear the level of uprising and just being appalled from that horrendous situation that you know what I mean? And that's just like he was literally sleeping. You know, and I interviewed his brother Corey McCoy, and he talked about all the fighting to get justice, and this happened, I believe, in Sacramento, and it was just so brutal. But I want you to talk to real quick before we go to break, the level of with ICE and how they're mirroring a lot with police departments and how they operate, and really how horrible it is. More so than people even know about. Now, I think there's a lot of people who are going to be paying more attention to it now, right? Because of this case. But talk about, you've been on the forefront, you've been, protesting ICE, for a while now. Talk about how horrendous it really is, the way that they operate on a daily basis. This isn't an isolated incident with ICE on a daily.
Yeah, so that video was to set up how ICE has been moving around. Shout out to Daily Affirmations by Pauline, who says, good evening. Taku Torre, haven't seen you in a minute. He says she was a lesbian. The stud told her to drive. Have y'all seen the footage? How much does the car weigh? All those comments came rapid fire from Taku. But we're going to get into, this is not really about the woman so much. And you'll see, we're going to get into what happened with the woman in a second. Let's finish watching the attached clips. Then I'll introduce the new panelist, my brother, and then we'll talk all about it. So this next one is from Harry Echoes. It says, this is a must watch. The New York Times carefully debunked every lie that Trump, Vance, and the administration have told about the brutal murder of Renee Nicole Good by ICE. Please retweet far and wide. We cannot let them get away with this. So we're going to watch this 4-minute video, and then we'll discuss.
On Wednesday, a federal agent fatally shot a motorist, 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good. Trump administration officials said these were, quote, defensive shots fired because the officer was being run over.
And a woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over.
But our analysis of bystander footage, filmed from different angles, appears to show the agent was not in the path of the victim's SUV when he fired 3 shots at close range. Here's how events unfolded. Moments before the shooting, the victim's maroon SUV is stopped in the middle of the street. Multiple unmarked federal vehicles are idling nearby. Secretary Noem alleged the motorist, quote, was blocking the officers in. Bystanders are blowing whistles and yelling at federal agents. Then, federal vehicles start moving toward the maroon SUV, with sirens and lights blaring. A federal agent films the scene on his phone. The driver rolls forward slightly, turning left, then stops and waves for others to go ahead. 2 agents exit this silver pickup and walk toward the vehicle. Moments later, shots are fired. Let's look at the scene again more closely. This is the agent who shoots the driver. He walks around the car filming and disappears from view. Other agents pull up and order the driver to exit her vehicle. One of them grabs at the door handle and reaches inside. The SUV reverses, then turns right, apparently attempting to leave. At the same time, the agent filming crosses toward the left of the vehicle and grabs his gun. He opens fire on the motorist and continues shooting as she drives past. The moment the agent fires, he is standing here, to the left of the SUV, and the wheels are pointing to the right, away from the agent. This appears to conflict with allegations that the SUV was ramming or about to ram the officer. President Trump and others said the federal agent was hit by the SUV, often pointing to another video filmed from a different angle. And it's true that at this moment in this grainy low-resolution footage, it does look like the agent is being struck by the SUV. But when we synchronize it with the first clip, we can see the agent is not being run over. In fact, his feet are positioned away from the SUV. The SUV crashes into a white car parked down the road. A bystander runs toward the collision. The federal agents on scene do not appear to rush to provide emergency medical care. Eventually, the agent who shot the motorist approaches the vehicle. Seconds later, he turns back around and tells his colleagues to call 911.
Shame! You shot someone! You shot someone!
Agents block several bystanders who attempt to provide medical care, including one who identifies himself as a physician.
I go check a pulse. No! Back up! Now! I'm a physician! I don't care.
At the same time, several agents, including the agent who opened fire, get in their vehicles and drive off, apparently altering the active crime scene.
So there's one more attachment here, but I just want everyone to understand the flow of attachments here. It's to set up the story that we're all familiar with. It's a hot topic going on right now because it just happened. But this is not about sympathies for this white woman necessarily, but this is about, look at how they can come and break down footage and show where this white boy ICE agent is in the wrong, and that is cold-blooded murder. But they don't put half this effort, a quarter of this effort, maybe even a tenth of this effort, when a black man, especially, or a black woman, is killed in similar circumstances by a police officer in the streets. Look at the time they took to what's the word they call it again? To line up the two videos and blah, 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 blah. Like, that's what this really is about, is how they can, when it's their people, they can get right in there and study every part of it. But when it's one of our people, like in the case of Keith Porter Jr., who was shot on New Year's night for firing a gun in the air, celebrating the new year, 2026. He was killed. He didn't even get to see too much of that new year. He was killed by an off-duty ICE agent. This last attachment kind of speaks to that point. Make sure you guys can see it. Yes, you can. This one speaks to that point. By the way, if you want to join the panel, click the link at the top of the chat and join the panel. This is another almost 5-minute video. We'll watch this and then we'll have a discussion on all of it.
In addition to Renee Good, and actually before her incident on New Year's Eve, there was another unaliving by a frozen reject that didn't get a lot of coverage at all. And almost nobody but the local news is talking about it. My guess is there was no video, so it didn't go viral. But his name was Keith Porter Jr., and he was a father of two. A black man living in LA. He had an encounter with an off-duty frozen reject, and that encounter ended up with him unalived in front of his own home. Now, it was New Year's Eve, and Keith Porter was firing his weapon into the air in front of his home. This is not unlike what people do even in my suburban neighborhood in a different state, where the white folks get together and start discharging their weapons in the air in celebration. If you were to try to break them up, they would holler Second Amendment rights. And in this state, they may or may not be right. But in LA, it is illegal to fire a weapon in the air. Problem is, a frozen reject is not a law enforcement officer. And responding to those types of calls, especially when off duty, is not their job. At this point, frozen rejects are only being trained for 47 days. And much of the qualifications that they had demanded from them at the beginning really lacks on because people are not passing those qualifications. So we're talking about a person who is very likely not at all trained to handle that type of situation, especially when it comes to de-escalation. And on a side note, do you know why they only train for 47 days instead of something longer like 60 days or 90 days or something? They train for 47 days in honor of the 47th president. It is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. It is such a cult. But I digress. So this guy in plain clothes comes up to Porter, and it ends with Porter being unalived. Now, the Frozen Reject, which they will not release his name, claims that he was stopping an active mass incident, but no one was being hurt. Like I said, Porter was firing his weapon in the air in celebration of New Year's. He was not aiming his weapon at anyone, but DHS wanted to say that there was an exchange of fire, and then Porter got hit. My guess, and this is just speculation on my part, the Frozen Reject shot first, and Porter shot back, thinking that a regular civilian in plain clothes was attacking him. That's my guess and my speculation as to what actually happened, because you can't trust anything that these people say. Now, like I said, firing your weapon in the air in Los Angeles, California is illegal. You're not allowed to do that. But it doesn't result in an unaliving sentence. Porter was not convicted in court. Porter was not given due process. And Porter was not harming people in front of his home. And immigration officers are not law enforcement officers. If anything, that Frozen Reject should have called the police if he was concerned. I still think he shouldn't have even done that. But like I said, it is illegal to fire a weapon in the air. So if he thought that a law was being violated, then it was within his rights to call the police, call the actual police, and get them down there. But these people do not have situational awareness. They work on assumption and fear-mongering. They saw a black man with a weapon and did not take context into account because of their biases that they have already. The Frozen Reject was not a hero because he didn't save anyone. He took a life. But that isn't even the only extrajudicial incident that has happened. In Portland, Oregon, the Frozen Rejects fired on 2 people. The cops were called out to 102nd and Southeast Main Street at about 2:20 p.m. yesterday, which is Thursday at the time of filming, and found that the Frozen Rejects had been involved in an incident. Now, it is important to get right that the police were not involved in this incident, just the Frozen Rejects and civilians. The details about what happened there are a little bit more scarce, and there are definitely mixed messages and attempted cover-ups in that one as well, as witnesses are saying different things than the Frozen Rejects. This is my shocked face. So the mayor of Portland, Keith Wilson, is calling for all Frozen Reject operations to end until a full investigation has been launched and completed so that they can know what in the world is going on. And one thing that I'm really liking to see is that the politicians are actually starting to get angry, starting with the mayor of Minneapolis telling the Frozen Rejects to get the fuck out of his city, the F-bomb being a direct quote. Janelle Bynum from Oregon is also really pissed, saying that this isn't law enforcement, it is state-sponsored terrorism. And she literally says, stop fucking with us. That is the energy that I want to see. And the fact that she ends her letter with, we need to get these goons gone, get to stepping, is the icing on the cake. Maybe I can go into politics after all, because now they're speaking my language.
Sorry about that. If you guys can see this gentleman or lady named Sawa Niblitz, please escort his sissy self up out of the chat with that blah, blah, blah comment. Trigger Happy in the chat says, I wouldn't be surprised if some of these agents do those initiation rituals like cops. I saw a Twitter post that explained that U.S. cops, American cops, join internal gangs by taking out black people. Absolutely. We talked about that on Shoot the Breeze some years back. Thank you for that, Trigger Happy. By the way, KW Don 7 said, I rejoice when chickens come home to roost. It all comes out in the wash. Provide triggers for evolution. Says, greetings, Sokoku and the panel. I appreciate that. I never seen this name before. Is it a nice Chevery? I don't think I've seen you before. She asked Takutori, what stud? The white woman who was killed or deleted, I should say, she she was a lesbian, and and the woman with her was like a stud or whatever. That's who Takru was talking about. With that said, let me finally introduce my first and only panelist tonight. That'll be Black Steel. Black Steel, how are you this week?
Man, everything is everything. I'm doing great. How about yourself, Koku?
I'm hanging in there. I'm good. I'm good. I'm glad to see you. By the way, just to let everyone know, I heard from Buana a second ago while those videos were playing, and he told me that he's maintaining. He got through this horrible day of laying his mom to rest, so he'll be back once he's feeling better. So we shout out Buana, and we shout out Brother Bakari, whose birthday is today as well. So shout out to them. Black Steel, just in general, what was your take on all these developments by ICE this past couple of days? What were your thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, this lady isn't the first person ICE has shot. My thoughts on this. Couple things. First of all, the comment about chickens coming home to roost is absolutely correct, right? In a more technical term, it's called an imperial boomerang, right? The violence that is used to oppress Black people, the violence that is used to oppress people overseas and imperial power is often turned around and used to oppress the citizens of that empire. Black people have always been dealing with this. You know, we saw several times where an unarmed Black person was murdered by police. I'm thinking of the Black man who was himself in Minnesota, a young man by the name of Fernando Castile, who was shot by an officer after the officer told him to, show him his concealed carry permit. And he shot him in front of his 4-year-old daughter. So that officer was not punished, and that was allowed to happen. The young Black woman, Breonna Taylor, who was killed by a law enforcement officer. I can't think of the sister's name, but she was killed by the cop while boiling a pot of water. You know, she didn't throw it at him. All she said was, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus," and he shot her in the face. You know, so these extrajudicial murders of Black people have been going on for centuries. We've been getting it on camera forever. You know, we're talking about all the way back to Rodney King. We've been getting these things on video. And very rarely do the officers involved in these extrajudicial murders are punished for it. Very rarely. I think, George Floyd was a rare exception. But most of the time, they get off. You know, they have qualified immunity and so on and so forth. So, but this violence does not just affect Black people, African people, because the police in the United States kill more people than any other country in the world. No other country has the level of police deaths than the United States, right? And that is very much by design. White people get murdered by the police too, but for some reason, white people seem to be okay with it. You know, they seem to be okay with their people getting murdered by the police. Even this situation with this white woman here, there's a lot of people taking up for this officer. A lot of people are saying it was her fault. She tried to run the guy over, and we saw the video. She was not trying to run this guy over, but that is a narrative that's being pushed by so many. That she was a threat, and she was a radical leftist communist agitator, and to the point to where the vice president of the United States is now slandering her name. But this is to be expected because the United States is not a democracy. It's never been a democracy, right? If you go all the way back to George Jackson, when he wrote Blood in My Eye, he said fascism is already here. If you're a person of African descent, you're already living in a fascist society, right? We've already under mass surveillance. We're already under, extrajudicial murders and killings that affect our people. Now it's affecting white people, right? And now they want everybody to get up in arms, but it's too late for that, right? I think the horses have already left the barn, at this point. It's too late for that. The system itself is already entrenched, right? And it wasn't an issue when you could sit back and quietly mind your business, sip your lattes, go to concerts and live your life. White people weren't concerned. Sorry, my dog's batting a fool. But there was never an issue when Black people were being murdered. But now, everyone sees this white woman getting killed. Everybody's up in arms. I believe the ICE people. First of all, ICE is Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement. Yeah, he's a big dog, Rhodesian Ridgeback. Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement. They have no jurisdiction to perform a traffic stop on anyone. That is not their purview. Their purview is for people who are presumed to be illegal aliens. This woman was a U.S. citizen. They didn't have the legal right to stop her. First of all, that needs to be said. But in this world we live in, legality means nothing. What the United States did in Venezuela was a major violation of international law. But yet Trump is not only doubling down, now he says he wants to take the sovereign territory of a major ally. So we're starting to see the breakdown of the quote unquote rules-based order, which was never a real thing. What we're starting to see is the velvet glove removed from the steel hand, is what we're seeing. We're starting to see the outright the elimination of soft power and the promotion of hard power, which is basically do what we want or we're gonna kill you. Might makes right. And ICE functions, even though we may think that they're meant to protect the government or do immigrations, what they really are is Trump's brown shirts. I would not be surprised to see how many people from January 6th who helped attack the Capitol on that day, how many of those people, once they got their pardon from Trump, how many of them were folded into ICE, right? How many of those people are now working for ICE? So for those of you who don't know the brown shirts, right? For those of you who might be listening, the brown shirts were a Nazi militia that was founded by Adolf Hitler in the 1920s. So basically, they aided him in his rise to power, right? They were like a paramilitary force. They were out in the streets, beating up on anyone who opposed his order. But what happened? There was an event called the Night of the Long Knives, basically, where Hitler eliminated his brown shirts. They were useful to him to an extent, but now, once he got rid of them, once he didn't need them anymore, he got rid of them. And ICE did not just come. ICE was actually invented. ICE came about during, I believe it was either George W. or Obama's term, and Democrat. They funded them. They made sure they had money. They increased their budgets. So the problem is not just, we don't talk about Trump this, Trump that. It's not Trump. It is the system that has been created, the apparatus of the state that's been created and is being used. And now it's being used against the American people, which again is always been used against Black people. But there's a quote by Howard Zinn. He says that the establishment, whatever rewards it gives us, will also, if necessary to maintain its control, kill us. So even though this white woman, she was, white lady, her sexuality, whatever, she was out there, blowing a whistle. She was no threat to this officer. But like in the video, she defied his command. How dare you disobey me? That's why when he shot her, he said, "You fucking bitch." Those were his words after he shot his lady. So Black people, we live in an anti-Black world. We live in an anti-Black society. Our lives don't mean anything to the powers that be, and they never have. And truth be told, if a white person goes against the established order, their lives don't mean shit either. You can see based on the comments, these white people don't care about these Trump supporters and these MAGA people. They care less about this woman. When we think, I just mentioned January 6th, right? If those white people had not been conservatives, had they not been racist, had they not been trying to overturn Trump's to overturn the election. Let's say those were some communists, right? Those were some white communists. They would have mowed them all down, because ideology is important too. Race is important, but also ideology as well. This woman was supposed, because she was against Trump's regime, and according to what a lot of people think, her life was expendable. And I expect to see more of this. I expect to see more of this because there's no real resistance. The politicians that are in place that were supposed to limit these type of behaviors from the executive branch, they're in collusion with it. So this is really the tip of a very large iceberg. So I'll just leave it there. Thanks, Koku.
Yeah, no problem. It's just me and you, so we could kind of chop it up. But real quick though, the other brother that was the brother that was killed on New Year's Eve night by an off-duty ICE agent. I had heard nothing of that incident personally. I personally did not hear about that incident until after this white woman was killed. And now you're correct. There's a lot of white folks, like the sissy who was in the chat earlier talking about blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of white folks who are on some blah, blah, blah stuff when it comes to this white lesbian woman who was killed. But there are many in the media who are dissecting, as we watch that video, who are dissecting the actions of the ICE agent, right? And coming to the conclusion that the ICE agent was out of order for how he handled the situation. But you don't see those same people taking, at least to me, taking that time to break down when a black guy is killed or a black woman is killed by police or ICE or whoever it is. I think that's interesting how it's different with a white person. Do you have any thoughts on Black Sea? Do you have any thoughts on the black guy who was killed on New Year's Eve and how it's a different kind of conversation around that?
So from my understanding, this dude was not acting in his authority as a member of Immigration Customs Enforcement, right? He heard some shots, he ran out there, and we only have his word about what transpired. Excuse me. So from what my understanding is, he was off duty. He was in the mode of a civilian. So he just managed to kill a person who he claims was a threat. But at no point did he, we don't know if he identified himself. We don't know what happened. So and unfortunately the brother's dead, so we only have this cracker's work to go on. So to me, in my thoughts, I feel like, it didn't get as much news because we become accustomed to Black death, right? Black people dying at the hands of the police is routine. It's a regular occurrence. Happens all the time. Another nigga dead, who cares, right? That's the way our society looks at it as. I'm sorry, I'm smacking. I'm sorry. I apologize. But our society sees another black person, especially a black man. They're not really gonna investigate it because we live in an anti-black world. They're not gonna really give it the attention that it deserves. And unfortunately, because he's dead and he gets on video, that's probably why, it's not getting as much attention.
That's true. That's very true. By the way, it's Saturday Night Shoot the Breeze, man. You guys can drink. You guys can eat. You guys can do what you need to do, man. It's all good to me. In the meantime, while Black Steel deals with that, let's welcome in Real Black Gentleman, man. Happy New Year to you, Real Black Gentleman.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
How are you this week?
I'm okay. It's been a minute. How are you, Koku? How have you been?
I'm hanging in there. Thanks for asking.
I just want to give my condolences. I heard about Lana, so I'm going to give my condolences. That's hard. That's hard.
Yeah, I'm sure you appreciate that. Sure. But go ahead.
As far as like ICE and all that, and with the two, with the you know what I'm saying, with the brother out there and out west, I didn't hear about that until yesterday myself. So, and then, you know what I'm saying, I just heard, you know what I'm saying, what happened, the aftermath, you know what I'm saying, from news or whatnot. Now, you know what I'm saying, listen to the family. Yeah, it's you know what I'm saying, it's more casual killing act. You know what I'm saying? That's more, you know what I'm saying, just black man with a gun, like, you know what I'm saying, no sense of anything. Johnny on the spot, you know what I'm saying, just self-deputizing in the situation, you know what I'm saying, just using the fact that, you know what I'm saying, they say off duty as if, you know what I'm saying, like, you know what I'm saying, just to kind of give it a flavor about the whole situation, when it's like, I mean, it's wrong. I mean, I would wish all the justice, because I you know, people do that. You know, we're talking about ICE, immigration and custom, right? You know what I'm saying, enforcement, right? So the customs, you know, we could talk about the immigration and all that. You know what I'm saying? Let's talk about the customs. You know what I'm saying? People fire off guns and 4th of July. All white, black, aquamarine peoples in this country will do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not unheard of. You know what I'm saying? It's not necessarily the safest thing, because the falling bullets can, you know what I'm saying, you know, fuck up someone. But it happens. So it shouldn't cause alarm necessarily. That idea that, you know, he had a gun, you know what I'm saying, kind of, you know what I'm saying, like amping up about the whole situation, when it's just like, you know, that's the whole like startle effect about the whole situation that gets you to not really, that gets not you, but people to not really think about it, because it's that, you know, it's the sensationalizing about it. And you know what I'm saying? Naturally, you know what I'm saying, no one knows it was dark. So no one can see necessarily anything. A lot of people may have been, you know what I'm saying, had the TV on or talking or anything like that, you know what I'm saying, in the house and all that, you know what I'm saying? I don't know what the neighborhood looked like. So it's like, you know what I'm saying, people's get, you know what I'm saying, shot down. It's never fun. You know what I'm saying? There's no justice, there's no reasoning about it. You know what I'm saying? People turn into like, well, he had a record. I don't know anything about the man, but they'll like dig up something about him, try to like justify it. You know what I'm saying? Call the dog a bad name in order to hang him. But my thing is, I want to talk about the woman though, right? This woman. Now here's the thing, right? Now here's the thing. I mean, it is what it is with ICE. Like, I'm not. How do I say it? Like, if you're gonna have a country, you know what I'm saying. Let's just pretend, you know what I'm saying. For God, I don't want to, but like, okay, let's say that like America was predominantly black and it had all our stuff, and like everything being the same, you had 200 million, you know, peoples. Are we just going to let them in necessarily if we still trying to take care of what's black? You know what I'm saying? It's like, I do think that you know, it's sensitivities about that. I think that Homeland Security is going about it roughshod. They're not, how would I say it? It's like they're talking about going after the worst first, and then all of a sudden they're just going after random people, and it's hectic and chaotic. So like you have this white woman, okay, the Somalis are going in there, probably it could be anyone, because Mexicans is everywhere in this country too. So I mean, Lord knows who, you know, they could say it's the Somali, you know what I'm saying? They come after black people if they can. So but that's beside the point. So you have this white woman all up, you know what I'm saying? They protested, but she all up in the middle, you know what I'm saying, doing the most, right? It is what it is. Now the dude, you know what I'm saying, who shot her, right? I saw a video of him being dragged, like, what was it, 100 feet? Like, what was this, a couple years ago, you know, just on his own, like, doing what he was doing. So, like, I mean, you know, when you put yourself in the middle of the protest, it's kind of, I'm not crying no tears over the woman, because I think she did the most. And, you know what I'm saying? It's just one of those things, she did the most. But at the same time, it's like, what I'm starting to see is a lot. I'm starting to see Black Lives Matter get involved. This is not where I want black people in the. Look. I mean, it's a tough cookie. Like if you run, I mean, it is what it is. I'm not going after you, but people will. And if you know that, it's just one of those things where it's like, if your paperwork ain't in order, I can't do that for you. You know. So if you're gonna get all up in the way, like, it doesn't help your own cause if you trying to like be on the low about what it is. You know what I'm saying? It's coming from a black perspective. That's all I'm going to say. Like I said, as far as the woman, she did the most. And you know what I'm saying? Black people, I don't want to see black people getting all up in protesting. I think it's all up in Minnesota is not necessarily like where we as black people is necessarily our power base. So I don't want to see black people rushing into the ice when, you know what I'm saying, if we were just, you know, focus on concerns a little bit more on more familiar ground is what I'm saying. Oh, geez. It's always tough. I mean, I think it was messed up. I will say, remember that there was the child care center that had got broken in. Y'all remember that?
No, I don't. What was that?
This is in Minnesota, where they're like you're talking about the fraud, the Somali.
Oh yes, Somali immigrants. Yes.
When you were talking about the Nazis and brown shirts, honestly, what came to mind is like the night of the broken glass type energy. Look, I don't know. I don't want to say that like it could. I mean, I could think that you could have very sophisticated operations where like they go in and break in, because if you have a camera phone, you can spy and know where everything is. And you know what I'm saying? Like you kind of know where, bro. It's like you could have some goofy shit where someone's trying to like, you know, saboteur some shit and like, you know, instigate and all that. But at the same time, it's like, this is what we doing. Like there's, you know, Brett Favre, a whole millionaire, had welfare fraud. You know what I'm saying? And they not like burning down his house. You see where I'm getting at? It's always, you know, blind eye when it's like, when it's local, it's domestic. It's like, well, there's a reason. Maybe he was going to give it away for a good reason or something. You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, at least he was holding on to it. Type energy where it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is not how you want to go about doing this if you're actually trying to be effective. If you're really trying to get rid of people who you feel shouldn't be here, I mean, at some point you're going to scare off people, but you don't want to be so scary that you're ineffective. That's all I got to say.
So, real black gentlemen, to your point, man, the goal, I mean, if you look back at the numbers, right? If you look at the numbers, when Obama was president, he deported a lot more people with a lot less commotion, right? So that's why I've heard some people call Obama the deporter in chief, because he was out here deporting people. I remember he had a relative, his aunt, his father's sister. I think she got deported too. Obama didn't give a damn, right? But I think the way ICE is going about it is not meant to be efficient. It's meant to strike fear, right? The cruelty is the point. It's meant to scare people so that when they see this going on.
If you scare people, you're trying to like freeze them up, of course, because you're trying to capture them. Yeah.
But the whole thing when they separate families at the border, all that other stuff, that was intentional. That was done to basically show you, you come here, you're gonna lose your kids. Oh, you think you come here and give your kids a better life? Oh no, we're gonna take them kids. We're gonna put them kids in foster care. They're probably gonna be molested, you know, that type of stuff. So I think the way Trump is going about it again is to just bring fear into people. And no, he didn't try to run. She did not try to run that man over. We can literally see in the video. She got the reverse thing. The wheels are turned the opposite way. She didn't try to run him over. In fact, she was waving him past. She tried to drive away, and he didn't want her to drive away. And that's when he shot her. His life was in no danger. And we knew that his life was in no danger. He literally walked up to the car. So this is a case of cold-blooded, in-your-face murder. But like J.D. Vance said, you know, they're giving immunity. This woman that crack is not going to see a day in jail. I doubt it. Not only that, they have removed the state of Minnesota from the investigation. So usually the state and the federal government work together when involving a murder investigation. Now they just don't care. Now they won't let them access any evidence. They won't let them question the guy. It's just now the Fed's going to deal with this. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and you notice that ICE is really directed in Democratic-run states. I will say this: in states that are more conservative, that are more Republican-led, You don't really see this type of action. I don't see this in Florida. I don't, and there's plenty of immigrants that are illegals here in Florida. I don't see this type of stuff in like Texas, and Lord knows that the Mexicans and illegals is deep in Texas. Where you see them at? Minnesota, majority of the Democratic state. California, Democratic state. New York. So Trump is using ICE to enforce and enforce the law as he sees it in the states that he felt they didn't vote for him, that are against him. He's a petty bitch is what he is. Trump has always been a petty little bitch. You know, he's always been the type of person who wants to try to punish you. He's vindictive. He holds a grudge. He's like, for example, there was a Native American tribe down in the Everglades, and they sued to have the little detention center that was here in Florida removed. What was it called? Alligator Alcatraz. So they sued and it was closed down. So this tribe was supposed to get some extra land, you know, as a result of stuff going back years ago. And Trump just vetoed it. He vetoed it because they caused him to close his little detention center in Florida. He's a petty motherfucker. He's always been like that.
Great conversation there. But yeah, to Sister Cheryl's point in the chat, we just saw in the video, you know, this white woman didn't try to run that guy over. She was just trying to pull out. But this is not about the white woman so much as the uneven coverage. It took this white woman to get murked before I even knew about this black guy who was killed by ICE. Before I even knew there's another case with ICE that came up too after this woman died that I wasn't even aware of against a black person. So you know, that's really what the prompt is about. How you know, these forces carrying out these extrajudicial killings, pretty much, and how it's only now when a white woman gets hit that people are paying attention to what's going on. I had someone say to me earlier, if these forces like ICE start to run rampant around cities where there's a lot of black folks, will it come to a point where black folks are going to have to join with white folks to kind of go against these ICE agents? I'll throw that out to you guys. What do you guys think?
Man, the majority of white people in this country is not going to go up against immigration customs enforcement. American white people they talk a lot of shit, right? They talk a lot of shit about, the Second Amendment is here to protect our rights against tyranny. They don't give a fuck about tyranny. They don't give a damn. They love tyranny because they think it's gonna hurt black people and the people they hate more, right? There's no real resistance that's gonna come out of Europeans for these Americans try to fight ICE. Yeah, the liberals and the more they're gonna blow their whistles. You know, you might have some of the more extreme, like some of the militia up in the mountains, up in Idaho and Washington State. They might do something, but for the most part, the average American, they're still hoping that come the next election, come the midterm election, they can turn the Congress more Democratic, get more Democratic seats in the Congress, so that way they can impeach Trump. The thing is, they still believe the checks and balances and the laws and whatnot, they're still in place. And eventually, we're going to stop Trump. This is a triumph of good over evil. No. Not only that, I would be, even if there were to get a Democratic majority in the House, you still need at least 2/3 of the Senate to impeach. That means you got to, if the Senate's 50-50, you got to get at least a good portion of Republicans cross over to impeach Trump. They're not going to do that. They're not doing it. So I think the idea that, we vote and we're going to sit up here and change cut this thing around and, good will triumph over evil, so on and so forth. I don't think that that's going to happen. I don't really see that as a pathway. But I'm telling you, most of these liberal white people, most of these white people who believe in the system, they really believe that they can vote their way out of this. We're long past being able to vote. There's no voting out of this. Trump has already openly said he's running for a third term, which is in violation of the 22nd Amendment. They don't care about the law. The law is meant to punish, not hurt, to punish their enemies, not to punish them. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about that. Black people, if you go out there, they might put you on a t-shirt, but ain't no teaming up to stop ICE or stop any type of fascist movement in the United States. They're not. This is white people's problem, right? They voted for Trump. They got to fix this. They got to fix this, and I don't think they have the will to do so.
Any thoughts on that, IBG?
As far as like how would I say, it's just what gets me is I don't want. It's like the fascism thing really gets under my skin because that was like. There's a reason that you don't have government and big business teaming up. I call it, how people talk about the apartheid state. I call this the sponsored in part by state. You understand what I'm saying? You know how on the soap operas, if you know how there was a say sponsored in part by such and such company. That's how America. That's fascist America. That's when you really have a lot of the business and government being hand in hand. That's what Italy was about. That's how they like to do things in Europe. That's their dream state. Where it's just like, well, you're a business. Why don't you just, I just need you just to do stuff for the country real quick. You know what I'm saying? Just do this and just produce this real quick. Just have this be made for the country. That's the fascist dream. And like there's a reason why you don't do that because you then stifle any kind of like enterprise, any kind of innovation within companies because you have this stasis of a business model that is just just in an appendage to the government. You don't want that. Not in any kind of semblance of a bountiful free society that has any kind of liberty, right? You don't want that. There's a reason why you don't. That's why Eisenhower was talking about the what was it, the industrial what did he say, the
industrial complex.
Military industrial complex. Hear me out. That is fascism, right? Fascism is the state in business. What is military industrial complex? Military is the state, industry is business. He was trying to say, yo, we gotta watch out for this fascism, yo. I'm just saying. And the more that you don't want it because it's ugly. It makes you buy and just support these icons that are just appendages of the state in effect. You don't want that. You don't want that. And you have a lot of this big business, the AI tech. That's why it's so like sexy. You know what I'm saying? The AI, you know what I'm saying? All the cute drawings and shit. But like they don't talk about how like they scrying and mass the surveillance by business. That's independent surveillance. That's Google. And we're not even talking about the government. The government has to ask Google. You know what you see? Bruh. Like I'm with it. I don't fuck with fascism. You heard? I don't do fascism. I'm not with it. That shit always falls. Because it's just too much power in too few hands. It winds up being an oligarchy. And everyone else is left out in the cold with no options. Either work for the machine or you know what I'm saying? And is that what we really want to do? You know what I'm saying? But it's like I said, it's tech. So it's like it's seductive about it now. You know what I'm saying? Everyone has AI, everyone has all these apps. You know what I'm saying? You have to use the app to do your job and this, that, and the third. You see what I'm getting at? I don't want to keep rambling about the point because I know I'm talking up on the point.
No, you cooking, bro. You cooking because
who just got in? Who just came in here?
Kofi.
Oh, Kofi. I'm gonna let Kofi talk.
But before Kofi, how you doing? Before you you cooking,
Yeah.
Black gentleman, because the
Yeah.
statement is fascism is capitalism in crisis, right? When the capitalist system runs into a crisis, right, fascism is their immune system. And you talk about corporatism, the merger of state and corporate interests, suppression of dissent, scapegoating, right? All of these things are happening now. We're not on the cusp. We in it. We already in the shit as it is, so to speak. But this is just America cannot keep up with China. They cannot produce the goods. They're worried about the BRICS movement, and they got these other countries getting off the dollar, trying to trade oil in their own currency, and they are nervous. That's the whole purpose of them going after Venezuela. People think that Venezuela, that he was selling drugs. He's a narco terrorist. Meanwhile, he's pardoning the president of Honduras for doing what? Selling drugs. It's not about the drugs. It ain't about the fentanyl. It's about the fact that we want control over the second largest oil reserves in the world. Venezuela was trying to come off the gold standard. Come off the dollar standard, come off the petrodollar and trade in their own dollar, and they can't have that. They can't have that. So I'll stop there. Let Kofi speak.
Kofi, how are you this week?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Happy New Year to everybody. To the panel. Hope everyone's doing well. My condolences to Buana, and you too as well. Coco, if I never gave you condolences with your father passing as well. It is a difficult time to do something like that. Yeah. As always, Black Steel steals my thunder.
Call it a gift. Call it a gift.
Basically, I was going to say that because basically what Black General was describing is pretty much crony capitalism. He wasn't really describing fascism, but you put it correctly. When crony capitalism failed, then fascism steps in, because fascism is nothing but a mechanism where you have one branch of government, whether it be the executive level or not, galvanize power and goes against the people or the rules thereof that's they're supposed to be governed by. And we see that a lot with Trump. Him going into Venezuela, it's supposed to be an act, you only get permission from Congress. Only Congress can wage war. 9/11 happened all over again. He did the same thing in Iraq. He did it the first time in his first administration when he was when he did an airstrike on Soleimani. Not Soleimani. Yeah. I think it was General Soleimani. Yeah, that he killed. Right? You can't do that yourself, but Trump think he's a king. But to this whole prompt, yeah, it is something. The goalposts have moved. A white, blonde hair, blue-eyed woman is now cannon fodder. Now, rest in power to Keith Moore, I believe was the brother that got shot on New Year's Eve. To them, that's just business, and the video that you played on Coco was of the sister pretty much going over the events and everything, what happened, and it being ignored and the media coverage and things like that. That's just a Tuesday. What I am seeing right now, because ICE has done something like that. No one has really necessarily gotten killed in this fashion, but a white woman. So the powers that be, being the Trump administration, and even some very die-hard people right now that are on the right, is using her death as pretty much cannon fodder. She's just political cannon fodder right now, and it's like, oh well, I guess this is the cost of doing business right now. As long as we get all the brown people out and all the black people out, they're trying to attempt to get all the black people out. So it's no big deal right now. So I find how it's very interesting how these events are going to transpire. And I do want to say that the question that you asked last Coco, I think is going to be an effort where I'm not saying for black people to go out there and fight, but let's be real. Let's be real. Out of all the black people that how many black people went out there marching for Black Lives Matter, for George Floyd, for Sandra Bland, for Breonna Taylor? I don't know any, but I know a whole lot of white people here in New York is marching them all up and down. So something, a march where you would expect to be a lot of black and brown faces. Nah, you look at those Black Lives protests, it's a bunch of white people. So what are we talking about when we say, do we have to never, are they going to fight or are they going to stand? They're doing that for just black people alone. So why not won't they do it for their own white person? But these people that are march in Black Lives Matter rallies and stuff like that, it's a color thing with them. So for Renee Good, I see is going to be more of has nothing to do with race, has to do with right, has to do with wrong, it has to do with law, has to do with overreach of law, it has to do with that. So now they're going to realize, like, wow, you know, I heard one of them say, hey, we're used to protesting, stuff like that, because it's happened, you know, with George Floyd. So this is something that we have to deal with. Now it has nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with us initially, but these groups of people like Black Steel, talking about, you may have the white people all way up there in Washington and stuff like that, and these liberals that would do that. But all white people are really realizing that, are in the middle, especially on the left, is like, wow, it's going to affect me. It's going to affect us. Okay, yeah, I own the libs or whatever. One of us died, but you know, that could just be me. That could be a loved one of mine. Oh, okay, I'm a magatard, but hey, you know, I have my wife, my sister, my wife, my cousin, my grandfather. They're a bleeding heart liberal. That could be them. So it becomes I mean, it's already an American issue, but now it becomes an American issue, and it's like, oh wow, now we're gonna have to fight this. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I was just because Sister Cheryl, and by the way, thanks, Kobe, for joining us tonight. But Sister Cheryl was asking, why would we march with white people? No, the question really was, because I had a conversation with someone earlier today, and they were like, you know, if this ICE type of thing starts to get further out of hand, where it's affecting both blacks and whites, it might be the case where we're gonna have to join with whites to fight this militia, if you will, called ICE, this deputized group called ICE, who's now killing people with impunity. So that's where that question came from, Sister Cheryl. Shout out to Fred is back, 69. He's been posting a couple of things out there. I had a follow-up question for Fred, but I'll just pass that by for now. Man, good conversation on Shoot the Breeze topic number 1. Let's go to Shoot the Breeze topic number 2 while we have a few people up on the panel with us. You guys keep commenting in the chat so that we can have a robust conversation on these things. Shoot the Breeze topic number. So here comes Fred. FBAs ain't helping no tether. So to Fred, there's a question from me to Fred. What's FBA doing with the invasion of Venezuela? What are your thoughts on that? Should be topic number 2. All Pan-Africanists have to understand that Israel is a garrison state that monitors African countries and provides surveillance and military training for dangerous neo-colonial states. This came with a link that's going to take us to YouTube to a Camgiverse video. Shout out to Camgiverse. He gets a lot of play on Shoot the Breeze. Camgiverse has this video called Bombshell, Jeffrey Epstein Exposed as Mossad Agent in the Ivory Coast. We'll watch the video and then we will comment on it.
At first, I was an excited young woman on top of the world. Epstein flew me to his private island. He listened to my dreams, promised to help, but his promises came with a catch. The abuse began. He told me to keep it secret. He manipulated me with quid pro quo I did not consent to, but I felt I had no one to turn to. He was too powerful. I was just one of the many young women trapped in his orbit. I was even taken on a trip to Africa. I was even taken on a trip to Africa with former President Bill Clinton.
For today, I want to give a follow-up to the last video that I made about the Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, and Ouattara stealing the election. Now, this story is about how Jeffrey Epstein is actually exposed as an Israeli operative, as a Mossad operative of Israeli intelligence. So Epstein helped Israel sell a surveillance state to Cote d'Ivoire. Leaked emails show the details behind talks between Cote d'Ivoire and Israel, shepherded by Ehud Barak and Epstein. So we have an image here, Epstein with unidentified soldiers in Africa, and these are photos from Epstein's birthday book. Believe it or not, many different African leaders and dignitaries are implicated within these Epstein files, right? This is something really, really important that we must consider. So Epstein and Ehud Barak were specialists in war profiteering. At the end of his tenure as Israel's defense minister and after his supposed retirement, Barak embraced a role as a salesman of Israeli security services to embattled governments, opening the door for Israeli intelligence leaders to shape the security apparatuses of several African nations, including Cote d'Ivoire. So we obviously know that in the 80s, Cameroon has been, their military intelligence services have been ran by Israel. So we obviously know that that is the case in Cameroon as a literal Zionist-occupied government. But now we're learning that the same is the case with Ivory Coast. So quietly facilitating these efforts was Jeffrey Epstein, who allegedly died in jail in 2019. Epstein wrote at one point to Barak, with civil unrest exploding and the desperation of those in power, "Isn't this perfect for you?" Barak replied. "You're right, in a way, but not simple to transform it into cash flow. Transforming unrest into cash flow in the case of Cote d'Ivoire involved brokering deals between the Israeli state and the embattled West African nation." New details about Epstein's role in Israeli intelligence operations in Africa have emerged from two sets of documents: an archive of leaked emails released by the Dalal hacking group and hosted by nonprofit whistleblower site Distributed Denial of Secrets, and documents released by the U.S. House Oversight Committee last month. The latter set includes Epstein's personal emails and appointment calendars, which provide clear evidence of Epstein's involvement in Israel's West African security negotiations, while Barak was still Israel's defense minister in 2012. The two men worked together as a conduit of Israel's intelligence sector in Cote d'Ivoire, where Barak was welcomed as representative of the Israeli government, even after leaving public office. Epstein helped Barak deliver a proposal for mass surveillance of Ivorian phone and internet communications crafted by former Israeli intelligence officials. So again, these individuals were using Israeli intelligence, Mossad operations, to be able to surveil all of the people of the Ivory Coast, right? So any type of surveillance state that exists in the country today is due to Israeli technology and due to the work of Epstein. As in Mongolia, Epstein and Barak's private deal-making evolved seamlessly into an official security agreement between Israel and Cote d'Ivoire in 2014. Since the agreement was signed over a decade ago, President Alassane Ouattara has tightened his grip on power, banning public demonstrations and arresting peaceful protesters. In this October election, the octogenarian won a fourth term in defiance of constitutional term limits, while opposition candidates were barred from participation. Today, Ouattara continues to enjoy the support of Israeli security firms to help him maintain power. His Israeli-backed police state has squashed civic organizations and silenced critics. In the wake of the recent election, exiled activist Boga Sako Gervais denounced Ouattara's authoritarian slide. Under Ouattara since 2011, freedoms of opinion, thought, and expression have been criminalized, he said. It has become forbidden to criticize the head of state. So the story of Israel's security agreement with Cote d'Ivoire is only one chapter in the saga of Epstein and Barak's covert activities in Africa. It is reported here as the next entry in an ongoing series on the Epstein ties to Israeli intelligence. So, obviously this is a big deal. You have Ouattara, winning his fourth term since 2011 at the age of 83, largely due to, Zionist Israeli surveillance. And we could clearly see when it comes to the crisis in Sudan, when it comes to the crisis in Congo, the Dan Gertlers of the world, when it comes to Gaza, we could see that there's an alliance between the Zionists and various African heads of state, various African mafias. So in late 2010, the disputed presidential election in the West African nation of Cote d'Ivoire triggered political upheaval and violence that rapidly destabilized the country. The UN certified Ouattara as the winner of a November 2010 runoff vote, but the outcome was not accepted by the rival incumbent, Gbagbo. After months of violence, a French and UN military intervention was launched in April 2011 to remove Gbagbo and drive him from the country. After Gbagbo's exile, Ouattara inherited a security apparatus fractured by the crisis, and his hold on power was uncertain. The new president announced that his government had foiled a coup plot against him by officers loyal to Gbagbo in June 2012. 5 days after that announcement, the new Ivorian president, who had a long career as an economist at the International Monetary Fund and a reputation as a technocrat, traveled to Jerusalem to meet Defense Minister Ehud Barak and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and discuss cooperation on science, technology, and counterterrorism. The following month, an Israeli delegation visited Cote d'Ivoire to field Ouattara's questions about security apparatus and rebuilding the Ivorian presidential army. While Israeli and Ivorian officials sat in hotel conference rooms and took photographs, American financier Epstein was across the globe, engaged in shadow diplomacy to develop further ties between Israel and the new Ivorian leader. On June 18, 2012, the same day Barak was meeting with Alassane Ouattara in Jerusalem, according to Epstein's schedules released by the U.S. House Oversight Committee, his son, David Dramane Ouattara, was in New York City for an appointment with Epstein. On September 12th, 3 months later, Epstein met with Ouattara's niece, Nina Keita, whom he had known since at least 2002 as a young fashion model in Jean-Luc Brunel Carin's model agency. She had traveled on his Lolita Express plane between New a lot of the children of many of these African leaders and dignitaries, and there's definitely some evidence that he was smuggling, many of these children. They were existing and they were operating in human trafficking from the African continent abroad, right? So the next month, Epstein flew to Africa. In a note to his assistant, he instructed her to arrange 2 switch planes in London before flying to Cote d'Ivoire, Angola, and Senegal. There are no flight logs documenting the Africa trip, so it's likely that there was a lot of human trafficking within these trips. The flurry of visits appeared to pay dividends for Epstein, Barak, and the Israeli government. 2 weeks after Epstein's trip to Africa, the Ivorian Interior Minister Hamed Bakayoko was in Tel Aviv to meet with Barak and discuss a bilateral security accord focused on intelligence and cybercrime. And here we can see a variety of emails, just documenting, Epstein with Nina Keita. These emails are redacted. And he's discussing, October travel with his assistant, including a stop in Cote d'Ivoire. So Barak has previously claimed his private investment with Epstein were conducted as a private citizen and unrelated to official Israeli state affairs. The documents released by the House in October, however, suggest that Epstein played the same fixture role with Barak while Barak was still the sitting defense minister of Israel. Barak did not respond to a request for comment. Less than a year later, Barak resigned from the Israeli government. In 2011, Barak had split from Israel's Labor Party and formed a small centrist faction called Independence. Despite his long history in government, including a past stint as prime minister, his tiny part was predicted to get wiped out in the January 2013 Knesset election. He left his position as defense minister on March 18, 2013, before an agreement with Cote d'Ivoire was reached. Barak's departure from the government did not end his role negotiating security agreements with Israel, however. After he left his formal government role, emails and private accords show that he had finished negotiating the intelligence deal with Cote d'Ivoire covertly. In these efforts, Epstein provided critical assistance. So here, it's just obvious that Epstein was definitively a member of the Mossad. He is documented as providing some details to Israeli intelligence in terms of establishing the security apparatus in Cote d'Ivoire. And it's just crystal clear that he played a prominent role. So not only was he linked with the Mossad via Ghislaine Maxwell and her father being a Mossad agent, but he was also very, very pivotal in terms of establishing this apparatus, in Cote d'Ivoire and basically managing all of the different, security surveillance systems in Cote d'Ivoire that Israel wanted to implement, right? So this is a clear case, and it just speaks to the idea that, African nations should be able to, finance and develop their own security, because when you don't develop their own security, you clearly have situations where foreigners can be able to take over. Foreigners like Epstein can be able to provide you with, security that may not be amenable to the best, forms of agency and independence and autonomy, with respect to Africa and the way that we relate to other nations like Europe and Israel, right? So we can clearly see some processing chains here that were set up, by Epstein. You have the telecom technology, be it landline, cellular, sat phones, VSAT, tactical radio, and then you have that being intercepted. You have that being processing, and then you have the consumers all the way on the right here. And this is the type of system that Epstein was setting up, in order to spy on the citizens of Cote d'Ivoire, right? And they used something called signal intelligence or SIGINT operators to be able to retrieve a lot of the information and intel, in this regard. So, this is a very, very clear case. Again, we speak about the indigenization of technology. What would Africa look like if our own intelligence technology was indigenized, if it came from the African continent? Would we have to rely on these foreign actors, these bad actors? Where does that put the children, right? Not only looking at the meeting with Nina Keita, but how many children were being sex trafficked because Epstein had access to the government of Cote d'Ivoire and because he was acting as a Mossad intelligence officer for Cote d'Ivoire. These are things that we need to continue to look at. These are things that, we have to examine, because any of these African nations who signed agreements with Israel and who was working in tandem with Epstein is implicated in a lot of these crimes, right? Now, you would hope that many of the leaders of African nations would be able to call this out, would be able to, blow the whistle and the red flag. But obviously, with respect to what we saw with the UN and them congratulating congratulating Samia Hassan, congratulating Ouattara in obviously stolen elections, we cannot trust the integrity of the African Union when it comes to this type of stuff. So this is something that we're going to continue to report on this channel. This is a bombshell. It's no longer a myth. It's no longer speculation. Epstein is clearly, he was clearly working with Israeli intelligence. He was clearly working with the Mossad, and they were using this type of stuff to, strengthen the grip that they have on the African continent. And this is not only the case of Cameroon, because many people thought Cameroon was the only state in Africa that was a Zionist occupied government with military intelligence ran by Israel. Apparently Cote d'Ivoire is part of that, and many other African nations are part of that as well. So we're going to keep, following close tabs on this story. That's all I got for y'all on this. Hope to catch you on the next one. Peace.
All right, that's Camji. Camjiverse. Make sure you guys check out his channel as well. I'm noticing a lot of interesting names in the chat that I've never seen before. And I'm noticing, Fred, you're not really sticking to the topic that's being discussed. And I don't particularly care for that. You keep talking about tethers, and you say, "Oh, I don't hate tether," but you keep talking about, when in fact tether is a derogatory term anyway. And I don't know what that's all about, but I will say, let's focus on the topic at hand, if you don't mind. If not, you can go elsewhere. There's a Pan-African space. I say that without hesitation, right? With that said, Shooter Breeze topic number 2, all Pan-Africanists have to understand that Israel is a garrison state that monitors African countries and provides surveillance and military training for dangerous neo-colonial states. With that said, let me start with RBG. Real Black Gemma, what are your thoughts on that?
I gotta give a shout out to KMG. When he goes into the investigations, like he be hitting them angles. Look, all this with Israel and Africa, even with the AU, I'm gonna say this. I knew the AU was discredited when I found out that the Chinese had bugged it. You understand? The building in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, the headquarters, right? Do you remember when that happened? Y'all remember that? But they had Chinese bugged the whole, like, because they built it, so they bugged it. So it's like, look, I don't know who is getting this bug in the ears of our African, the leaders, the people, the heads of state. It's just like this expertise and this appeal that they just have with, I mean, we just can't say, I'm good. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, all these, we good. Like, I just don't need it. You know what I'm saying? Just like, you can keep it pushing. We good. We good. You know, and just like, not like We need them to like do some shit and have some expertise and have all this with the high tech. It's like they bring in this high tech. It's like it's the more surveillance. It's more them trying to get an edge on what we're thinking about, how we're thinking about it. Do we like them at the moment? Do we not? Are they hating on us right now? It's all, that's what surveillance is about. It's just like it's just bullshit. It's like I can't believe now he's in his 4th term. I don't know how many years the term is in Ivory Coast. I don't know if it's 4 years or 5 years. I think it's 4 years. So it's like, well, it's going to be 16 years. I mean, look, African power is an amazing creature because again, some people can be. It's like with I'll say this. I mean, I think Gaddafi was in power for 42 years. I didn't hear no one talking about, oh, Gaddafi gotta go. Gaddafi gotta go. You see what I'm saying with the angles? Again, you have Blaze who was there for 27. They were trying to get him out from go. And so, like, look, you play when you play with the Constitution, you play with the people. You know what I'm saying? Because the people, it's not just one person. I mean, as much as if it's not a military situation, people expect rules. I mean, if you're a legislator, you know what I'm saying? If you're in the court, you expect the country to run a certain way because you're invested, you're a vested interest in that country. But when you kind of like, it's amazing. It's like a lot of people in legislation, they're either like lawyers or they're business people. Like in a lot of cases, they happen to work in big business in a lot of cases, you know what I'm saying? Or at least, military type stuff. And so like, they're always connected to, the economy in a way. So it's like, it's not just him, it's the people who are letting him go in. It's not just, Watari, it's the other people, is the corrupt judges who's just saying, yeah, we'll change the law to say that these foreign people these Israelis can come in and do what how do you not know when all of Africa, if you pay attention, is screaming like the Ethiopians getting stared like you just gonna let this like and be all and look all and photo op and all chummy like hey and like every time I see this happen, I see the smugness on Netanyahu because he's surveilling. He surveils me, you, all this shit. Anyone who even like think about him is being surveilled. The AI are already do it automatically, right? So it's like it's like you gonna let that in, and it Paul Biya. It's like you can see leadership, and you can see how it runs. It's like everyone wants to be king. I want to be king, but you just can't do it by yourself. You need king's men. You got to have these people out here in the field who's going to, block bullshit for you as a king at a minimum. Otherwise, they're going to plot and take your crown. So it's like, I mean, if you realize that like you can't do it by yourself, you need all this foreign help. Maybe you need to find someone else in the country who can think a little differently about the situation and come to an alternate conclusion that's more homegrown. That's all I would have to say. I don't. It's like you don't need these. You don't need any. If we're going to be Pan-African, and I want it not to be a scattered bunch. I mean, I really need African politics to start aligning with one another from one nation to the other. You've got to have political cohesion, and it has to be. It's got to be coast to coast. In my ultimate view, when it's really Pan-African, it's coast to coast, and we will know it's coast to coast. You know what I'm saying? Whether it be from the skinny side on the equator or from the whole Sahara to Sahara, it has to be coast to coast. Otherwise, it's patchworky. And it's like when we have the African Union, it was like a bright start. Oh, y'all bugged it? So y'all know how we running our game? Oh, fuck. Now we got to kind of go loco and crazy just to throw people off. That's all I got to say. I'm a pass.
Good stuff. Good stuff, RBG. In the chat, NP20 says the big problem in African nations at the moment is China via debt traps, controlling resources, bribing leaders, etc. I'm surprised you aren't bringing that up. Well, RBG just brought up a lot of what you just, I guess, was waiting to be heard. But then you go on to say the U.S. at least develops quality infrastructure that doesn't fall apart and develops the countries, hiring locals. China hires exclusively Chinese people, builds flawed infrastructure. So that tells me you're like an America first type of guy. America's a problem too. America had invaded Haiti. What became of that? Where's the quality infrastructure that they left back? I'll wait. Right? Fred, brother, you said something like you're 63. You're a little too old to be coming around people, call them tethers and all that type of shit. I'm gonna leave that there.
Man, kick him out the chat, man. He ain't talking nothing but nonsense. The CIA has entered the chat, guys. That's what it says. The CIA has entered the chat. What are we talking about right now? Anyway, what was I gonna say? Get him out of here. Fuck out of here. The circus, it's too early for the circus in the year, man. Anyways, what was I gonna say? I'm sorry, Koku. I just kind of jumped over you introducing me. I'm sorry. At least I'll get in here, man.
Blacksy, hold your thought for a second. I want to get to I Can Fight. He just joined us. In the chat, he said, looks like we're lucky the Democrats lost. I Can Fight, how are you this week?
Hey, Quaco, what's happening? Respect.
Koku.
Respect to everyone also. Yeah, as I said, lucky thing the Democrats lost, because all of these things that you spoke about, the guy spoke about in the documentary is the Democrats. You feel me? Epstein, everybody, all of them, Democrats. Well, Israel is both of them. You feel me? At this moment, Israel might be the bird, and the politician might be the wings. Anyway, I think we have a bigger problem than Israel. I even think we have a bigger problem than Europeans. Seriously, like seriously. Sometimes Africans take things too simple. Africans have a 2,000-year problem living with them called Arabs. You feel me? And it's a thorn in the side of the African since 1,500 years. You feel me? It has been a thorn in the African. So for me is life is we have to do chess with life, actually. And they even treat us like they playing a goddamn game. So we need to play a game too. We need to play games too. You feel me? Instead of dying for no reason, we need to play games too. Now, I'm looking at like, oh, the Israelis, they cannot be trusted. But the Arabs cannot be tolerated. What would be my choice? I look at it like this, right? I look at it like this. I've never seen anyone kill our enemies like the Europeans and Israel. Personally, I think we should play this game where, of course, we should keep Israel paws out of Africa, but we should work with Africa. We should work with like this Israel, or we should work with these people since they are so powerful too. You feel me? We should work with them against these goddamn Arabs. You feel me? My problem with Israel, they go into Iran, but our problem is Egypt and goddamn Libya and the scumbag called Tunisia and Algeria, Mauritius, Mauritania. These scumbags is our major problem. You feel me? And that would give us, and we should think about it, because we as people in the West, we can look at it as we have land over there. That's land we can own after we go get it. You feel me? And these are the way how we should think, instead of look at South Africa now. I blame South Africa for sticking its head out like that. Why would you do that? You feel me? You need to be quiet. And why are you fighting for Western Sahara? Why are you doing that? And you sit there and watch America destroy Zimbabwe. They're a set of hypocrites. They're a set of fucking hypocrites. You need to keep, they all in South Africa need to keep their mouth closed. Get yourself in trouble for no reason. Are you getting yourself in trouble for no reason for? For a set of dirty Muslims. Arabs. You feel me? That never cried out for the people of Sudan. They never said a word when they were split in Sudan. You feel me? Yeah, when the Arabs and the mixed Arabs was taking away Sudan from South Sudanese, no stinking Palestinian said a word. You feel me? And these dirty fucking scumbag white loving South Africans crying out for these people, getting yourself in mixed up shit. You feel me? When we should be thinking about getting back our land from these scumbag people. You feel me? And have Africa totally black and totally black dominated. That's supposed to be our mission. That is actually our goddamn mission. We want the whole of Africa, that land from sea to sea, for ourselves, black. You feel me? Yeah. And drive these mother lovers in the ocean, or subdue them. You feel me? Let me tell you, we should be their fathers. They shouldn't be. You know how they do? They kill all the men. And then everybody, they're the fathers of everybody. That's how they look at things. You feel me? So we should do that in return. Go there and clear out all their male species. And who live is dominated. You feel me? And we think about Israel and Europe and Europeans when we have our place. You feel me? When we have all of our place. That's what we need to be thinking of. We're not supposed to be fighting nobody war. And thinking who is evil because they're killing over there, and they're not killing us. How you don't like Israel and they're not killing us? You have black people living over Israel, even though the Israelis might snub at them a little. You feel me? But they don't call them, their name is not slave to the Israelis. The Israelis don't refer to them as slaves. Huh? But the goddamn dirty stinking Palestinians have a whole neighborhood they call Abib. They call the goddamn neighborhood Abib, where black people live in. Black people live under torture in these Islam area. And they teach black people in Africa to torture other black people and love Arabs. I mean, like, it's just easy math to say, let's just do whatever it takes to work against these stinking Arabs. They are too close. They're causing a lot of division amongst us as black people in Africa. having other black people massacre us, spreading hate. These people are parasite to us. The reason they are parasite, the parasite tree, it needs a host to survive. So it's stuck onto you, and after 50 years, it become the tree, and it has a hole in the middle because you rotted down the host tree, rotted down to nothing, and it become a tree. You feel me? And that's the Arabs. They become a country. They become North Africa after they chased out the blacks and bred them out. So that's the ultimate enemy of Africa and of black people. That's how I see it. And the Israelis, arms length can do it. We don't need to go to no real friction with the Israelis because it don't make sense. It don't make sense. Yeah, they slaved us, but the other one cut our balls. The Arabs cut our balls. So I hate them more. I don't love none of them, but I hate them more. And I want to hurt them more. That's how I see it.
All right, thanks for that, Icon.
Yeah.
Sister Cheryl in the chat says, I got to be real with you. They all look the same to me, so they all a problem. I kind of share those sentiments. Sister Cheryl has joined us on the panel. How are you this week?
Yes, I'm doing well. Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am. Thanks for coming through.
Not a problem. And
What are your thoughts on this prompt, Sister Cheryl?
so if you can bring up the question again, because I think we kind of deviate from the question just a little bit.
I'm trying to go back and find it now. Hold on, give me one quick second. Let me read it to you, and then I'll paste it back. It says all Pan-Africanists have to understand that Israel is a garrison state that monitors African countries and provides surveillance and military training for dangerous neo-colonial states. That's the prompt. I'm gonna paste it back in the thing in a second.
Yeah, so I'm glad you reread that, because I'm thinking in my mind, okay, why is he framing the question that way? Like, why is he saying Pan-Africanists have to realize that, like, pretty much Israel is still a problem? And I think he's doing that because Pan-Africanists tend to be inconsistent. As much as I agree with the idea of Pan-Africanism, like this idea that we can all come together, I think that's something we can all agree on, based on the basis that we are all African. The problem is that Pan-Africanists tend to include people who are not African. And so when the question is where the statement is saying we got to understand Israel is a garrison state and it monitors Africa, a lot of the times you see a lot of black people who claim to be Pan-African, but they're also like, oh yeah, Israel is they're with us, they're on our side. And black people do this thing where it's like an honorary, oh, they can be let in. We do that a lot. Or this person is, I might have a white wife, or I might have an Arab wife, but I'm still for the cause. I'm still for Africa. There's a lot of people on the continent that do that. There's a lot of people in the diaspora that do that, but still hold tight to this idea of Pan-Africanism. And I think that's why it was worded that way. And I think we should be, this is why I know a lot of people may not agree with this, but it's important that you know what an African is. This question is exactly why, because it's contradictory. And I think we talked about this a little bit. I'm not sure if it was the last panel or the one before that. It was like this idea that it's, how do I say it? Like Pan-Africanists are inconsistent. That's what it was. Like they're extremely inconsistent in what they believe. They want to try to travel to India. They want to try to get the blackest looking people from India. They want to get the blackest looking people from Saudi Arabia instead of focusing on the people they know are black. We get sidetracked and we get to sounding like what are they called? Hebrew Israelites, because that's what they do. They want to go all over the world, and this is the line of Jacob and all of this foolishness. No, we get to sounding like them sometimes, and we don't realize it. We know what an African is. When you look at a black person, you know what an African is, and we got a lot of black people on social media. They look at people in the diaspora like. They'll look at me, they'll look at somebody maybe in the Caribbean, and they'll be like, well, you got some white ancestors, da da da. Okay. What do you see when you look at me? When you go to the continent, they cannot tell any of that. That 1 to maybe 10% of quote unquote white genetics that supposedly we have. Nobody can tell that because we are African. You can tell an African, you can tell a biracial when you see one. Okay. You can tell, like, we play these little games because because we have emotional ties to people that are not us. And we tend to have strong emotional ties to people in Israel. And we need to dead that. Like, we just need to leave them alone. It's not, I mean, whatever. If it's hate, then it's hate, whatever. But we need to leave them alone, and we need to be more consistent. And I'll end it there.
Appreciate that, Sister Cheryl. The truth is, Sister Cheryl, I think this is my personal take. I think once we still operate within these people's religions, quite frankly, we're still going to operate with some of these people, right? A lot of Africans think that their God is the God of Israel. I don't know which Pan-Africanists have aligned themselves with Israel necessarily, but I know a lot of African leaders do say that Israel's God is their God. And while, a lot of people have a disdain for Icon Fire's take about the Arabs are a problem, but Israel is a problem too, and they're increasingly becoming a problem because they're trying to get, and I think it was Trigger Happy pointed out some time ago, they're trying to make themselves some colonizers in Africa too. We got to be very careful about this group.
Quaker, look at this, Quaker. They are the colonizers. They are the colonizers. The Jews are the ones that rented the ships for piracy and slavery. The ships that carried us were owned by Jews. So the Jews has always played a part in slavery along with the Europeans. You feel me? Always. They've never not there.
So we shouldn't trust them either, right?
Of course not. You feel me?
Right.
But wait. But as I said, they are the IMF. They are the World Bank. That's the Jews. The America don't even control that. It's the Jews that controls it. The IMF and the World Bank. So what I'm saying is we're in their hands, actually, economically and physically over here in the West. You feel me? We're in their hands. Okay, when it comes to Africa, and they are even foundation. Every phone that you use, you heard Netanyahu said it. Every phone that you use have piece of Israel. I don't know what he meant by that. Maybe a bomb, but I don't know what he meant by that. But as I'm saying that WhatsApp, right, that most Africans depend on, is owned by Israel. WhatsApp. That's one of the main ways how they intercept conversations. So there is that. But what I'm saying is my people. You feel me? What I'm saying is my people. I understand the dangers of that, and we're in danger regardless. You feel me? So it's like this. Oh, if you're dying, or shouldn't you take risk? Because you're dying anyway, so you have to take risk. So what I'm saying is, like, The people who can touch us in Africa the most is the Arabs. The people who steal the most land in Africa is the Arabs. A lot of Africans are even fighting for land. Why? How you gonna fight for land and you have vast properties up north? Anyway, so what I'm saying is, see Ethiopia, right? Ethiopia has their people have lived thousands of years without electricity, and these people formulated a dam, and Egypt want to bomb it. These type of things like are like an abomination. How can you be on our land and threaten us like that? You feel me? Same thing with any one of them in the north, and how they speak to us, how they tell Africans over there. When Africans go to the north, they ask Africans, where are you coming from, Africa? The type of listen, you would not know the type of discriminations Africans go through on their own land. You feel me? On their own land. We going through discrimination here, but it's captured land. This ruled by the Europeans and all that. Feel me? So yeah, they can bully us and get away with it. But how can we make these people get away in Africa? Where are you going? You're not going nowhere. Africa, no, where are you going? If you make them push you off Africa, where are you going? You understand what I'm saying now? And these people are pushing. These people are pushing. They are the most dangerous. The Arabs, those radicals.
Line you're playing, brother. Line you're playing. Because we have other people to speak. We hear you.
Yeah.
Understand.
So I think that African countries, just because it's run by anti-Pan-Africans and they are kind of idiot, and they love white people. That's why Israel is so strong in Africa. That's it.
In the chat, I don't want to ignore Frank Rice. Frank Rice has been posting some comments. Frank says Kenya has now granted all and any East Indians tribal status. He says all an Indian has to do is show up in Kenya and he has the legal status as a Kenyan. That's problematic if that's true. Not doubting you, Frank. I'm saying I haven't seen that myself, so I don't know. Afro Native World says, so Sister Alma doesn't rock with Runoko Rashidi, I guess.
I'll say that comment that you just read is exactly why I say what I say, because now look, you got African people that are so the best word I can describe it as is how do I say it? It's we just get redirected so easily, and that's why things like this can happen. That's why Indians can come. Africa is not this. I'm not saying Runoko Rashidi's information is bad or anything like that. I'm just saying the people who follow him don't have a good enough comprehension of what he's saying. And I think sometimes we get so redirected, we start focusing on these other non-Black places, and those become like I said in the chat, those become the centerpieces of our focus instead of Africa being the focus, and then having the diaspora come and understand that Africa is the glue. Like we like to go off and, oh, but there were Black Asians in Japan, and we start saying crazy stuff like, okay, that's great, but you're getting distracted. Yeah, and so these instances where Chinese can run up in Africa and they can build their businesses and they can talk down to the locals and they can spit on them and they can fight them. They shouldn't even have the confidence enough to even do that. And that's happening because, like Koku said, religion And it's because you got so many Pan-Africanists that are inconsistent. They not putting the foot down. They not knocking heads together. Like knuck if you buck. They not about their life. They're not really about their life. So that's why you see these things happening, because they're not really serious. And I'll end it there.
Appreciate that, Sister Show. With that said, man, Black Steel, you've heard everything everyone else had to say. You see what the chat's talking about. What say you to everything you've heard and read?
Oh man, it seems like it's a lot of reactionaries in the chat tonight and on the panel tonight. First of all, let me say this. Want to understand. All Pan-Africans should be anti-colonialism, right? Anybody who considers himself a Pan-Africanism, anybody who wants to see the unification of African people, has to be anti-colonialism. That's Arab colonialism, that's Chinese colonialism, and that's European colonialism, right? So any form of colonialism, we should be against it, right? So to the props point, right? Israel has long been a laboratory for repression. The tactics used by the Israeli state against the Palestinians are often repackaged and used against people against African Americans in the United States. And to Kamji's point, the technology and the methods of repression are also used against African people by African leaders. So he mentioned the leader in Ivory Coast. He also mentioned in Cameroon. They have surveillance techniques. They have technology. WhatsApp was mentioned. We remember how they put the bombs in the pagers in Lebanon, right? And they were able to activate those pagers and blow people up, not just members of Hezbollah, but anybody who they saw as a threat. So I think that as people who are Pan-African, who move with a Pan-African sensibility in the world, we understand that any colonial state is an enemy of African people, not just Europeans, but also Arabs as well. Israel just happens to be the most blatant colonial state in the world today because they're just openly slaughtering people. There was a point. Man, who was the dickhead in the chat? Anyways, don't look at me like that, girl. Anyways, as I was saying, we have to be anti-colonialism because we have a situation where a foreign nation can help influence, and the thing is, they're able to help keep repressive governments in power, right? And this enables them to further extract African resources. So the reason a state like Israel will support dictators in Africa is because those dictators allow them to come in there and pilfer and steal without having to pay market price or take advantage, or in the case of Epstein, find more victims to molest, right? But we have to be careful to recognize that the African governments don't always represent the African people, right? So the government, you have a dictator like you mentioned, in the Ivory Coast. This dictatorship does not represent the people of the Ivory Coast, and this dictator is maintaining his power via foreign technology and foreign help. And because he's in power, it enables foreign nations to further steal and rob from the culture, from the continent, right? This is I kind of think is what he's trying to say. That as a Pan-African, you should be against colonial settled apartheid states like Israel because of the damage they do to the continent. It's not about, I don't like these people. That's fine. You want to dislike their religion, that's perfectly fine. But the bigger issue is how they are used and how they spread the technology and the methodology of surveillance and repression, right? Just for that alone, we should be against them. South Africa, when they basically brought the charge of genocide to the Israeli state, I think South Africa did that based on their history, right? It's if you look at history during the apartheid era, the Palestinians were among the most vocal supporters of Mandela, African National Congress, and so on and so forth. So that's probably why they're reciprocating that. They remember when they were in their anti-colonial struggle, how the Palestinians voiced their support for them. I think that's something. Sometimes we don't remember that. I think that Africa is the focus. However, we don't live in a vacuum, right? So
The N word.
actually, I did not interrupt you. So give me that same respect. I appreciate it. Overall, as I'm saying, Africa does not exist in a vacuum, right? We can't. I'm going to focus on Africa and Africa alone. Africa's not some island in the middle of the ocean, and the rest of the world we just let them do what they want to do, and we just focus on ourselves. No, we can't. We can't do that. But however, I also want to say that Africa has to be our priority, but it doesn't have to be. It has to be our number one priority. But that doesn't mean we ignore everything else. Garvey said race first, but he didn't say race only. And I think sometimes we lose sight of that. There's certain elements and things that we don't focus on. But overall, I agree with the overall problem. You have to realize that this state, this nation, is an enemy of African people, but the Arabs are too, the Europeans are too. All we got is each other. There's nobody coming to save us. We have no friends, right? We may have some mutual interests, but in the end, we have no friends. And we can't lose sight of that, because these other people, they look out for their interests. If you want to do business with China, that's fine. Do business with China. Make sure the business is fair. Make sure that there's no situation where we're being taken advantage of. Same thing with everybody else. But I'll leave it there. A lot of thoughts there, but I'll keep it short and sweet.
No, I appreciate that, Black Steel. RBG, we haven't heard from you in a bit. You have any last thoughts on this front?
Yeah, I will say this. Like, he had mentioned them being, you know what I'm saying, on that list. Yo, like, this is why the list needs to go out. Look, if you got some Africans, some black people up in the neck. Look, go on and burn the house down, because you see, we can't have. You have to be more than yourself. You just cannot accumulate material for a status that is not self-created. You're keeping yourself in power with something that someone else is giving you, for the sole reason of keeping everyone else around you from you, and away from you. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so you can tell them what to do. And it's like it's some puppeteer. It's not of the people. You gotta have some sense of like, I don't know. I mean, I will say that. Look, I know democracy works in certain situations. For black people, it might not be the best thing in every case, but in some cases, like, unless you're absolutely certain that the governing structure functions with natural, popular input, you know what I'm saying, and there's natural, like a social compact that's already implied by the actions, you know what I'm saying, the powers given, you know what I'm saying, to a higher authorities. I mean, if you can make sure that the people are good, people are happy, that you keep on doing your little work, niggas don't really worry about power necessarily. I mean, you know what I'm saying? If you might want to, be technical about something, you might get recruited. Like I see this young man got away with, you know what I'm saying, designing something. I might need to have him, you know what I'm saying, in the office for a couple hours, showing us some, see how that works. It's not, and being the head of state is not easy. It's not a game. You have to constantly worry about everything. You have to worry about everyone. If you actually care, I mean, and sometimes it's not so much that you don't care. It's just you are just not as nimble about civic situations, and you get ushered out and there's someone else. I mean, it's an interesting animal. I can't tell you that one person shouldn't be in there for 1 year, one person shouldn't be in there for 50. Look, that's up to the people around them and how, you know what I'm saying, the territorialisms about it and who it concerns, you know what I'm saying? But I would say if they on that list, that's why this list, look, you know what I'm saying? On that list on the island, you know what I'm saying? You know, let's start fresh. You know what I'm saying? This is why you gotta have this information out there, because you can't keep stuff like this closed. Like, and as far as like what Econ is saying, look, the Arabs are the dominant threat, but the Israelis are the imminent threat, right? The Arabs can like lightweight pinpoint a missile at long range. You see how they do in Yemen. You know, you just draw a circle from, you know what I'm saying, and see where in Africa that circle, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like, the Arabs don't really have missiles like that. You see what I'm saying? They can mob on you and, you know what I'm saying, have the money game and, like, you know, do with did you hear about how, like, the Emiratis are, like, paid off Chad to, like, go up in Sudan? Am I tripping about that shit? But I heard something crazy about that. I don't know how true that is or not. But, like, in Darfur and all that, they still catching hell.
Yeah, Dubai is servicing the rapid support, the Janjaweed, to kill black people.
Yeah, but they're doing it through Chad from the west side.
No, they're not.
I heard something about that. I don't know how true that is.
No, they're not. It's the west side, but it's not through Chad.
It better not be. That's crazy. Okay.
It's through western Libya. You feel me? It's through eastern Libya and down into Sudan. You feel me?
Yeah.
I don't think Chad is involved with anything like that.
Okay, I hope not. Yeah. But like it's like they catching this is it's the Arabs can move around, they can move. There's a lot, the population, hard populations, you know what I'm saying? That's why they call it this rapid. They can go in there real quick. That's just crazy.
No, listen, man. As I said, that's the most danger. You feel me? And to me, the South Sudanese people need some help from Africans, because a lot of Africans is acting like these things don't matter. You feel me? They think that, you know, the Africans are so overwhelmed and weakened. They think that the Arabs, those people in North Africa, are Africans. They call them Africans. It's crazy. First, we need to assist the fucking the Sahel is the greatest place in the world right now, and I think the Sahel needs to go on the aggression now, like some type of assassination plan for Alassane Ouattara from Cote d'Ivoire. That one, he's the terrorist leader of Africa, of West Africa. They need to get rid of him ASAP. He's the offspring of Jeffrey Epstein. You feel me? Yeah, they need to get rid of him. And the Sahel, which is Mali, needs to invade Mauritania and take that land. You feel me? That's the first one. It's 3 million people there. Go destroy all Arab and maybe Arab looking, or anyone who is defending anything. You feel me? All of them, destroy them and take that land called Mauritania and rename it. You feel me? Yeah, your enemies would be coming from you.
So while we playing make believe,
that's what I'm going emphasize on with the Sahel, that they go take that shit.
They're still having to defend their borders against the Arab militias and those Islamic militants. They're not in a position to invade anybody
yet.
The only way that could happen I mean, look, we look. I'm looking at I don't even want to do it like this, but I'm just looking at hard demographics and hard nationalism. You have Nigeria has 250 million people. If they really, and you would think that if you're talking like natural like progression of nations, Nigeria in any kind of like natural sense to the eminent domain, everything around it for like 500 miles, any kind of natural like, well, if we're naturally the biggest country with the most people, we shouldn't have a state this big. We should have a state the size of, let's say, India. I mean, it's just natural, and that's nothing. I'm not calling any aspersion to natural like situations. But like, that's all the people in Africa is in Nigeria. What are they doing? They're kind of like the hunchback of Africa. They have so many people.
We should try to take over Algeria and give it to them Fulanis to go kill each other over there. Because the Fulanis, they don't have nowhere to go. And listen, the Nigerians can populate the whole of North Africa. There's so much people in Nigeria. If you put 10 million people in each country, that still don't touch Nigeria.
Are we serious? It is what I mean. It's the obvious population center. If Nigeria were just to become just expansionist, you know what I'm saying? Just but
they're not organized enough, and they don't have no compass. Nigeria don't have a compass. They don't have a aim or a destiny. Their aim and destiny is one wants to go into the clouds with the white man, and one wants to go to Hajj with in Mecca. That's all. Nobody has no plan for Africa. Nobody has no plan for black development in Nigeria. That's why they're so scattered. And they're most dangerous now because they can burst like a bubble.
And that's the worst part about it, because I mean, and the thing is, I understand. Look, I get it. I don't like the boundaries. I don't like looking at the map of Africa and seeing those lines. I don't like it. It's not something that I know black people made. That's why when I see the AES, I know that they're trying to just erase lines that they did not make, and that means a lot. I've said it once, I'll say it again. Africa needs clusters of confederacies. They just need, okay, well, you have 3 nations, we'll just have, you can just pick. I mean, it's like if why it's like Cameroon versus like, why is it not just one political unit? That's when I want to see the lines erased, and just to know that people are able to.
So that means Africa has 42 countries now. Damn.
It should be. It should be. I don't want to see Nigeria fracture into like 6 countries. I don't want to see that. And even though I can understand how, at least at a minimum, it might be a north and south, that doesn't do anything for any kind of greater African, unless, because I mean, I don't see one nation happening overnight. You have to like congeal the national units, and you actually have to have people truly working together. I truly hope that in 50 years we're talking about a greater Sahelian state than what we see right now. I really hope that's the embryo of something magnificent. I want to see the AES be the embryo of something magnificent. Right? That's
if the Israelis, the America, Europe, and the Arabs have anything to do with it. If those people, all of them is trying to stop what's going on in the Sahel. The Arabs and the white people. They all, the two, both trying to destroy Africa. Algeria is very Algeria is very upset at the development of Mali. Very upset.
All right, Icon. God damn, I've been trying to be cool about it, but come
Oh,
on now.
sorry. I didn't know it was you, man. Sorry, man.
Anyway, yeah, which is why we should keep an eye on all these people. It's all relevant. You know what I mean? We got to keep, like, I think it was RBG, Real Black Gentleman, who said something interesting. He said that Arabs are the present worry and the Israelis are the future worry. Something along those lines. He said it way better than
I would say Israel's the imminent threat in the Arabs are the dominant threat. Because like I said, Israel can have the missiles that can really come on now. Like I said, they strike Yemen, you can make the circle around where the launch and that good chunk of Africa is within that circle. That's why I'm saying it's imminent. The Arabs just don't have that. They're dominant though because of the sheer numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got. I think that's the overarching take on that prompt. Afro World says you can't see Trigger's comments. You might be on the KWAZ radio side while he's on the Bitter Medicine side. So if you go on the proper channel, you'll probably see Trigger. By the way, you guys who have mod status in the chat, when you see these trolls coming through, talking a pack of stuff that has nothing to do with the current conversation, let's try to get them up out of there, okay? Man, that was a good conversation. Unfortunately, the next prompt was supposed to be about Israel recognizing Somaliland, but for some reason the attachment isn't working. So I'm going to switch it up. We're going to switch up the whole flow here, and we're going to talk about medical racism in Shoot the Breeze topic number 3. So Shoot the Breeze topic number 3 says, medical racism in action. This comes with a link that takes us to X. Yeah, Yon the astrologist, the person. Let me make sure you guys can see. They changed something. You have to add the screen to the stage. Okay, so now you guys can see what I see. This is a tweet from Yana the astrologer. This was a story that was out late last year, but with all that was going on with me, I didn't get around to bringing this story around. But I think it's a good palate cleanser. This is probably the last topic of the night anyway. Make sure to hit the like button, share the show on your socials, etc. It says, there needs to be awareness brought to this. The Black woman is screaming in agonizing pain, and instead of taking her straight to a room, they had her in the waiting room for more than 30 minutes. Her son was born 12 minutes after this video cut off. This is fucking ridiculous. So it's a short video. We'll watch it twice and then we'll discuss.
Right now. Three. This is your third pregnancy? Yes. You have 2 babies. It's in my ass. Babies at home. Who's your doctor?
Lang is her doctor. Y'all treat all your patients like this or just the Black ones?
Okay, release. That's not a patient for you. Last name is Jones. She's G3P2. Not sure what her due date is.
Her due date
I
is
just said
the
it was
10th.
the 10th.
She had 3 pregnancies, 2 babies at home. I bet y'all listen next time. When you found out you was delivering at this hospital, your ass should have changed doctors. Everybody say how they treat people here.
When's your due date? Right now. Is your due date 11? been pregnant? 3. This is your 3rd pregnancy? Yes. You have 2 babies at home? It's in my ass. You have 2 babies at home? Who's your doctor?
Lang is her doctor. Y'all treat all your patients like this or just the Black ones?
Last name is Jones.
Her due date is the
Said it
10th.
was the 10th.
She had 3 pregnancies, 2 babies at home. I bet y'all listen next time. When you found out you was delivering at this hospital, your ass should have changed doctors. Everybody say how they treat people here.
Yeah, I showed it twice. It is like RBG said, or like RBG said in the chat. It is it is horrifying to see. But I think sometimes we have to look at the horrifying things to really kind of strengthen our position on these people that we're dealing with too. I was looking to see if there was more to it, but apparently in the original TikTok she was pregnant with twins, and thank God they all survived. But this is as Yana the astrologer said, this is ridiculous. Ghetto intellectual. He comments. He says, "I hate this place." Someone needs to mute their mic. He comments. He said, "I hate this place. If we would only unite, we could destroy this monstrosity. Wishing our sister and the twins good health and long life." Yeah, this is problematic. This is problematic. But let me start it off properly. Let me start it off with a Black woman who's a mother, and let's get her thoughts on this. Take your time. What are your thoughts on what you saw here, Sister Cheryl?
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't even like really watch it like that because it's like it's kind of triggering. And I read medical apartheid and all that. I know what happens. It's just like when you see it, it's different than when you're reading in a book. I wouldn't have been answering no questions. I know she's she's just trying to get through it, but it's just like whoa, like if this isn't like a wake up call, I will say that like when I was pregnant with my son, we were very specific about having Black nurses, as many Black nurses as possible, be in the room with me. And that's all races of people do it. Indian people to go to the hospital, they request to have as many as possible. They that's their first request, to have Indian nurses. Because it's we don't have to really explain ourselves. If everybody else does it, we should be doing it. And especially with under the conditions and the genocide that we experience in the West. So I mean, it's just awful. I can't even watch it. I don't know. I've seen it. I've seen multiple things like this, not just this one. But yeah, it's just really sad, and it's actually it's like it makes you angry because it's like not really. I'm not angry at like the woman for answering. But I just know, I'm just thinking, we can all say like, if I was in that position, I wouldn't be da 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 da. But when you in that position, you just answering. But I swear to you, I would not be answering that woman. I'll be like, I wouldn't be saying nothing. I'd just be focusing, you know. But yeah, I feel sorry for the system and all the women that really have to go through all of this. So yeah.
Sorry, was getting something to drink. So I appreciate that, Sister Sher. Let me hear from Real Black Gentleman. What say you to this?
I mean, it's again like not being able to move her, have her professionally, you know, move and had her situated for imminent birth, and she's clearly in pain, probably in pain, all kinds of pain, right? So yeah, it's just watching it, knowing that you can do all this stuff after the fact. Does she look like she really can think straight? You know, for example, it's like just having, you know, the whole idea of the medical system and how it gets to this point where you're actually doing probably more damage by trying to be going through procedure than you would if you would just do the procedure, after the fact, and just, you know what I'm saying, just do it after the fact. I mean, you have to, I thought it used to be first do no harm. You know what I'm saying? This is how women die in pregnancy. Okay, this is how women die in pregnancy. I mean, I don't want to. I mean, because the baby needs to. I don't even want to describe it, because you see the baby's just in her is moving, kicking, and you see, and it's not healthy. It's not a healthy state. It's not healthy for her to be sitting in that chair when she should need to be lying. I don't see what I'm saying. I'm not a woman, but I can see that you cannot keep a woman like this because of like the paperwork. That's all I'm going to say. Like I said, it's horrifying. I hope she's healing. You know what I'm saying? I hope she's healing. I'm done.
Yeah, I hope she's healing too. Thank you for that, RBG. I saw Anthony McPhail in the chat. Yeah, shout out to Anthony McPhail out there in the chat saying peace, brother, to Kofi the Black Critic. I don't know what's going on with the comments for Afro Native World. Gotta try to figure that out. Yeah, I'll try to figure that out in the future. With that said, man, let's hear from our brother who has returned, Kofi. Kofi, what say you to this?
Yeah, I'm a man, and this is triggering for me. Only because my wife went something similar with this. For those who don't know, I have 5 children, and my youngest son was being born in Florida, and she came in there. She was in a lot of pain, and the fact that they're not administering any pain, she could need an epidural. She could. There's a lot of things that they could have given her to alleviate the pain. Right? We all know that in slavery, they look at us as not fully human, right? Tests has been, like surveys that have been done, and they feel that Black people have a higher tolerance for pain, right? And it's mostly, you see this mostly playing out in settings just like this one. And around that time, so that was 2008. I went through something similar habit. Like, they would not give my wife any drugs. And there were Asian, there were Asian. I don't know if they were Filipino, Chinese, Vietnamese, I don't know. Dirty knees, I don't know what they were. You know what I'm saying? But she kept saying she was in pain. And like, okay, mama, not that. I'm like, no, my wife passed out from pain with tears in her eyes. I had to scream and yell at them for them to do something to give her pain in order for her to for her to do that. She couldn't even stay up. So this is extremely very triggering. Up to this day, we talk about that and we should sue. You know what I'm saying? That was like 17 years ago. You know, there's so many things that could have been done. She should not be in that chair. One, she should be at least on a gurney. If she's getting picked up, right? She's getting rolled in from the, you know, she's in labor or whatever. Yes, they roll you in. But when they roll you in, they're supposed to take you to a room, put you on a gurney or on a bed, right? They shouldn't be asking all this shit. Because it's obvious she came in an emergency room. She obviously came in an emergency room. This is an emergency room situation. The last thing she should be doing is going through this. This is something after the fact. So I don't know where she is or anything like that. But this is not. I'm not a medical professional, but I think I've been to the hospital long enough. I think I've been through the situation at least 4 times because my wife gave birth at home with my eldest son by herself. Right. So I've been through this at least 4 times, and this is not the way you conduct it. You see someone who you love, like, to go through that kind of pain, and this is her 3rd time, you know. But like the sister said, hey, you always say, hey, I'm going to do this, I could do that, but when you're in that situation, you don't know what you're going to do, you know. But something like this is triggering, and hey, if you want to say, hey, give me some Indian nurses, give me some Black nurses, hey, that's fine. You know, say I want to object against that. But any woman that's pregnant, especially as a Black woman right now, you have to be aware of this. Even when my wife goes to the hospital, anytime in the emergency room, there's no such thing as Black people acting a fool, because we know how you are. Even Black people will probably have that same white outlook. Because remember, unfortunately, we're products of our society. So white people's thinking that about Black people. You may think about the same way about Black people subliminally, not even know it. There's social experiments that people undergo, and Black people sometimes have the same outlook as white people due to propaganda, news, miseducation, misinformation. You know, so when it comes to our lives, we cannot play. She could have complications going through this right now. The baby could be coming in feet first. The umbilical cord could be around the baby's neck. They don't know any of that, and they're asking her questions. Her life and the baby's life could be in danger. They don't know how dilated she is. They don't know if she's 3 centimeters, 4 centimeters. They don't know anything. This is insane. I'll yield the mic right there, but good topic.
Wait, Kofi, I'm sorry. First of all, daily affirmation by Pauline is with us still. She said, simply put, this is negligence, and I agree. But Kofi,
Agreed.
you said your wife delivered your firstborn child home alone?
Yeah, and I always say it's her fault. So, and my son he was like 8 pounds. So I had to get up early in the morning anyway. She got up a little bit early before me, and she's like, oh, I'm having pain. I was like, wow, you want to, go to the hospital or whatever? And there's something called Braxton Hicks contractions. It's basically contractions that feel real, but nothing's going to happen. You're not going to get dilated, or you're not dilating or anything like that. So I'm getting ready to go to work. I said, are you sure? She's like, I'm fine. It's probably Braxton Hicks, contractions that I'm having. So I took the train to go to work. I got out the train. I'm in the office lobby because the train station and the office lobby is like right there. So I pull my phone out. I'm calling her, and all I heard was screaming. I'm like, what happened? He's like, he's coming. Like, he's coming. Like, blah, blah, blah. And then she just, phone just fell down. She was in so much pain. And then I couldn't get her anymore. And then I called her cousin. Her cousin, don't worry, I'm coming over there. I went right back on the train to go home. And so what happened with there, she delivered him and everything. She was on the phone with 911. They say just get like a twisty tie, whatever, to tie up the umbilical cord. Ambulance came and got her, but she all by herself. And she did that kneeling. Now she's sitting. She said she she was on the bed, but he said it felt better when she kneeled down in a praying position. And that's how my son was delivered. She was like kneeling down on the bed like she's praying. And then he just came that way. So if you notice in this video, she had to get up because it's probably in more pain. She's probably in more pain sitting down just like that. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of, like the sister said, this is negligence.
Oh, that's an amazing story, Coach. I'm glad that everything did work out, though. Funny enough, just a side note, I saw a post recently. I forget who it was, King Louis or somebody. But you know, originally women used to squat to give birth and stuff like that. And the reason, you know, maybe I shouldn't repeat that. I don't know if it's true. I didn't fact check it yet. But the claim is that women lay down because of a king's perverted outlook and all that kind of stuff. So I'll double check that before I repeat it. But thank you for that, Kofi. Wow, that's an interesting story. With that said, man, let's hear from Black Steel. Black Steel, what say you to everything?
I agree with everybody. You know, everybody's take so far. It is when you think about how high the maternal mortality rate for Black women in the United States is. You know, it's actually one of the highest in the developed world. And his woman and the baby could very well have died. I don't know the consequences of this. However, I do understand that, you know, Black people are seen to be able to withstand more pain. And it was bad because Robert Kennedy actually helped promote the same idea that Black people can withstand more pain, right? And this idea leads to situations like this, right? We have to be careful how the language is used, right? This situation is, you know, what Kobe went through. I'm sure every Black person has a story where our concerns were ignored in the medical situation. I mean, it doesn't matter who it is. It could be regular, everyday working class folks. It could be Black celebrities. I remember Serena Williams was talking about a story where she almost died giving birth to her child. And she is a multi-million-dollar, you know, world famous tennis player. It doesn't matter who you are in this society. If you are Black, when you go into that medical situation, you are in danger. And you would think, you know, if you had somebody who looks like you, they would understand. But we see situations where even the Black doctors and the Black nurses have these same attitudes against Black people. First of all, there needs to be some accountability, right? Why is this I hope this nurse, whoever was ignoring this woman's concern, I hope she was fired, right? At the very least, her license be brought to review. Because again, the quote, do no harm. That's their whole ideology. You see a person in pain and you're here, you know, filling out her chart. Is that really something that you want to do? Is that really a priority right now? Let me make sure all the I's are dotted and your intake form is complete. Bitch, what the fuck? That is not that should not be a priority. But again, Black people are number one, not seen as human. Number two, we're seen as we're able to withstand the pain. So what, right? And if she dies, one less nigger in the world. That's their mentality. There has to be, we really have to, I would say we gotta establish our own hospitals, right? Our own stuff. But the problem is there's so many Black people have internalized anti-Black views. There's no guarantee even that would solve the problem. We're talking about hundreds of years of medical abuse against Black people, Black men, Black women, Black children, right? But the thing is, you can't really solve the problem unless you're willing to admit the problem exists. And for everybody who's, you know, talks about, you know, we had the one talks about America and, you know, how great this country is, and yet shit like this happens on a regular basis. This one just got filmed. There's another woman who actually was turned away from the hospital. Her husband was going to drive her to another hospital, and she gave birth in the car. right? But they actually turned this black woman who was in active labor away. Again, a situation where she could have died, right? There was a black woman who recently, she's a doctor who dealt with this situation. She was a big advocate uh, for black women and giving childbirth. She died from complications from childbirth. It can happen to any sister out there, any sister. But again, we don't really. I think there's not enough awareness around the problem. I do, and I think that this stories like this is as uncomfortable as it is to see. Um, I think it's important for us to see this because we know this is a real problem. We know this. I'm sure everybody on this panel is aware of this. Um, Black people know how to give birth. We've been doing it for thousands of years. It's not nothing new to us. And, this is also a problem within the diaspora because of the lack of medical care, the lack of investment in hospitals and infrastructure. When you have African people who are rich and wealthy. I think who was the boxer who was recently in a car accident? I think he had to leave the country to get medical care. The African leaders who, they find they have cancer and they go to Saudi Arabia because they can't get the treatment they need within their home country. So what does that say about the average everyday person? If your president has to go to Switzerland to get cancer treatment, go to England to get dialysis on a regular basis, what does that say about the average everyday person in those countries? We got a big problem we got to address.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. And I like the little caveat you threw in there. I don't know, man, I don't even know where we should begin. But in the meantime, Trigger Happy mentions that Nigerians lamenting about how bad their medical system is, but look what's happening here in America. I don't know, how do we, let's spend a few minutes trying to brainstorm here. How do we deal with this? How do we address this? Do we go back to midwifery? What is it that we do? Chat, what say you? Sister Alma, Sister Cheryl, what would you say? How do we address these issues, you think?
I think it's just when you have to start relying, we have to start doing our research. We can start relying on our elders, women, I'm sure there are some women somewhere in America where they successfully, they have a network. They have networks and, I'm not saying every state, but certain places where they have tips on how to give birth at home. There's midwives, there's doulas, there's ancient practices from Kemet. And I think that's something where we get kind of apprehensive about because that's something that nobody really knows about. But we all, at some time or some point had a grandmother or a great grandmother who knew about these things, and it's just a matter of like passing, even if it's not your own grandparents, your ancestors, just pass that information down. We can do there's so much research to be done. I think it's just the hospital we always use as a failsafe, and I get that. I'm not like totally ignorant of that because what happens with people who are new to the midwifery and having a doula and not using the hospital as a first priority. Um, Sometimes you can use, what is it called? Um, it's not the hospital, but it's a birthing center. I believe those are quite different from a hospital. I think there's less intrusion from nurses and stuff like that, and it's more like family. Um, there's quite a few options. It's just a matter of are we willing to take that step, and also um, uh, Black women tend to have very high rates of hypertension while during pregnancy. Even if you're not pregnant yet and you plan on becoming pregnant, we have to focus on our health, eating the right foods, nothing absolutely, if you're pregnant or you plan to become pregnant, Absolutely nothing processed. Lots of water, lots of fruit, you know, the freshest that you can get if you can do that. No raw meats or, you know, stuff like that. No meats like heavy stuff. You know, there's a lot of things that we can do because Black women, we have is every time I turn around, I see like Black women talking about, oh, I was preeclampsia, I had diabetes, I had hypertension. These are things that develop as the baby is developing inside of you, and you become more at risk for certain things. That's why you have to make sure your health, and we don't really take health that serious. I think, especially when we're pregnant, we just think we could just eat anything. We get a craving for something, we could just eat anything. So, I mean, cravings do happen, but you know, you just got to keep in mind, like you gotta be. It's gotta be strict. You gotta be 100% healthy when you're doing that, especially if you have a history of, um, you know, not diseases, but certain you know, certain things that could create setbacks for you in your health. So just focusing on that because that all affects delivery as well.
Thanks for that, Sister Cheryl. You know, Sister Cheryl brought up something that I was thinking about while she was talking, and she happened to talk about it. Is I don't know if we're doing that research anymore. I think we've just surrendered everything to Western science now. You know, Black Steel mentioned how African leaders are going to Europe to do dialysis, but where's the herbalist nowadays? You know, where's the we used to call it bush medicine? Where's the bush medicine? Where's the, you know, where is that now? Who's talking about it anymore? I don't think African people worldwide talk about this stuff anymore, and I think that's a shame. I think it's a
Just
shame that
one more thing. There are some women who they were born on the continent. They're born in Africa. They came here to the States and they go back to their homelands to deliver to have their children. That's very common. So gotta keep that in mind. They don't use the Western practices in the continent, which that tends to happen a lot, and that's where you're seeing all these high mortality rates of children on the continent. They go back home and they rely on their you know, their community. And there's a reason why they do that. It's cheaper. Yeah, the flight is expensive, but in the end, it does end up coming out cheaper. And they're surrounded by family. They have people in the village that handle these things. And I think that's very telling that you don't even want to give birth. You come to this country, but you don't even want to give birth here. You got to go back home. I think it's admirable. And I think that's something that maybe if you have the means to do it, to consider doing that.
in the chat, Afro Native World recommends Nana Amos Wilson's book for Black women looking to get pregnant, Awakening the Natural Genius and the Developmental Psychology. So that's a good recommendation from that brother. Provide Triggers for Evolution is still with us. She says, I don't know if any of you heard Chimamanda Adichie shared chilling details on how her 21-month-old son died in a Nigerian hospital. No, I didn't hear that. That's interesting. She announced on X yesterday, anesthesiologist overdosed her child who was being prepped to return to the U.S. for medical care. Wow.
So cool. I just want to say, you notice when we start talking about some real shit, and all of our conversations are real stuff, right? We start talking about some real shit. You see how quiet the trolls are? They got nothing. All they do is cause dissension within our ranks, which is why I said the CIA is in the chat. Because the minute they saw this Black woman screaming in pain, it got quiet. They didn't have anything to say about FBA and tethers, all the other bullshit. Okay, you notice how quiet they got. I know some of them might have been blocked too, but at the same, good job on the moderators. But at the same time, they're never around for the real stuff the meat and potatoes that affects African people. When we have our sisters dying like this, we have our brothers being killed, they want to sit up and talk about tethers. And we should just focus on survival. FBA, get the fuck out of here, man. They really piss me off because all that their main goal is just to spread confusion and dissension within our ranks. All right, and we have to really understand we're dealing with real traitorous elements within our community, and we gotta be dealt with, you know. But back to the original prompt, I was looking up doulas, right? And the cost of a doula is actually somewhat expensive, and usually they're not covered by insurance. So a lot of times you got to pay $2,000, $3,000 up front. I was looking up in my area; they were talking about $3,000 for a doula. And that's out of the reach for many poor people. I don't know if maybe there's a way to bring down the cost. Maybe payment plans might be in effect, but that's just something I thought about. If average cost is $5,000, Jesus, that's expensive. That's the average cost. If you go into a big city like New York, LA, Chicago, whatever, it's probably going to be more if there's one available. So it's just something to think about. Even the more healthier, the more safe options, in many ways, out of reach for a lot of people. You know, and a lot of people, they're forced to go to a hospital because that's the only place that they can get care, and they should be able to get care. If you are a person, you need help, and you go to the place that's supposed to help you, they should fucking help you. That's the way it should be. But unfortunately for Black people, nothing comes easy for us. Everything is a struggle. You know, nothing is nothing. We've been given nothing. Everything that we have as African people, somebody had to fight, somebody had to die for it. So that's just my thought. Sorry.
No, that's good stuff. Provide Triggers for Evolution says that I stayed away from gynecologists for both of my pregnancies. My first was with a personal midwife in a hospital setting, and the second was a home birth with a midwife as well. Afro was asking me if there's traditional midwives in the Bahamas. You know, I don't. As we were talking about this, I was thinking about it. I don't remember. I know that, you know, you'll hear from your grandmothers and stuff like that, that there was always a woman in the neighborhood who will come around and kind of coach you and this, that, and the other. And in fact, I think my grandmother was like that with some people in the neighborhood too. But I don't remember off the top of my head sitting here right now. I don't really remember knowing anyone who was actually a midwife personally. Yeah, I don't remember that. Now, I'm from the capital. I'm from New Providence, so it's a little different. If you go in some of those out islands, I'm sure there's midwives and stuff heavy out there. But in Nassau, nah. Not to my memory. Not to my memory. Man, real good discussion tonight, everybody. I thank all of you for joining us here tonight. But before you guys leave off the panel and leave the chat and stuff, let's do what we tend to do on a Saturday night, which is, you know, at the end of a Shoot the Breeze session, is give a shout out, something positive you experienced or witnessed or saw or heard of in the Black world or in your own neck of the woods, something positive that happened, as you know, for Black people in general, man. You guys in the chat, start putting it up. I'll read them off before we head off the air. Sister Cheryl, would you like to shout out this week? I guess Cheryl went to.
Sorry. I guess I'll shout out. I'm shouting out Buana. Just want to say condolences to him in his situation. Just want to bring some attention to that, more attention to that.
Appreciate that, Sister Cheryl. Kofi, would you like to shout out this week?
I would like to shout out to all the Black people in Venezuela and to the Guyanese people holding down that border, and also, take a little bit of Venezuelan territory back. If you know the history of Guyana, Venezuela took a lot of territory of Guyana during Guyanese independence and other other situations where we were like being busy. So yeah, I kind of want Guyana to take back some of the land back. Join the Discord, everybody. Please join the Bit of Medicine podcast Discord. If you've seen the Discord, you can see someone in Guyana drew new borders that went from Guyana and took over all of Venezuela. So I just want to shout out to the Guyanese people and the Black Venezuelans, and to besides Maduro, his father Cesar Chavez. That was a man to be admired. If you guys remember Cesar Chavez, I learned a lot about Venezuela. He gave recognition to a lot of Black Venezuelans, right? And he gave them a lot of rights. He gave them a lot of recognition. There's a day on recognizing Black Venezuelans. If you guys remember further back, obviously, Venezuela always had conflict with the United States because obviously want their oil. Trump just said it, the quiet part out loud that we always know. But I remember during the time of the Obama administration, and he was chastising Cesar Chavez, and Cesar Chavez was saying like, okay, you worried about what's going on over here in my country, how I'm ruling my country, but in your country, you're a quote unquote Black man, and you got Black people being killed in the streets. What type of president are you? And I was just like, bravo. So I just want to shout out to all the Black Venezuelans, the people in Trinidad with Trump, bombing on Trinidad and fishermen. Fuck Nicki Minaj. She don't care about her own countrymen. Trinidadian people, being bombed. So I just want to say shout out to the Black people in the Caribbean, just holding it down.
Good stuff there, Kofi. Yeah, shout out to Guyana and that area of land that's kind of been under dispute between Guyana and Venezuela. Real Black Gentleman, RBG, what would you like to shout out this week?
I want to shout out. I want to shout out the podcast, this forum. I've been away for a while. I've kind of been busy, honestly. My schedule's just hodgepodge right now. I'm doing a lot right now, so I'm not as much. I'm just doing a lot. But I just want to give a shout out, like, for as long as I've been here, just like the people, Tanzan, I remember, like, Erzuliism, Bakari, everyone who I've had the honor to be able to speak with around this world about, even if I don't agree with everything you do, or some things I'm just like, it kind of just vex me. Like, it's important. Like this, like in times like these, you gotta be able to speak and understand how, it's like how the fish are swimming, how the formation's going, how, what I'm saying? Like, I see Africa is always at a crossroads. It can do so much. Black people around the world can do so much. It just takes a lot of just concerted effort. One thing I wanted to answer is like to the last question about one thing that health in general, like investing in health is always it just, the rewards on it are always just it's always good. So I'll also give a shout out to just Black health workers in general too, because like anything that you can do to help a nurse, a Black doctor, it will always pay off. I mean, unless they're crooked, but Black health is inherently like a righteous thing. I mean, people want to be healthy. People will always constantly learn, constantly want to get better. That's the health profession as a doctor. You'll always want to like keep getting better. You just have to. Physician, heal thyself. So shout out, to this podcast and the Black health. That, that's my shout out.
Appreciate that, RBG. Just real quick before I go to Black Steel, African World says that Barlovento is the blackest part of Venezuela. Is that the disputed region? Is that near that disputed region that could be Guyana, could be Veni? Is that area?
I will have to check that out. I'm not that familiar.
Okay. Provide Triggers for Evolution says, shout out to the condemnation of the U.S. at the UNSC with regards to the kidnapping of Maduro. Daily Affirmation by Pauline says, shout out to Koku and guests for continuing to rep the diaspora. Appreciate that. Daily Affirmations by Pauline. Provide Trigger says, my condolences to Buana as well. And Afro Nev World says, not that I know. Okay. So with that said, Black Steel, man, you're the anchor. What would you like to shout out this week?
Well, shout out to my son for receiving his first speeding ticket.
Oh, man. Okay.
It came in the mail. Boy, you got to be careful, boy. There's cameras everywhere. Shout out to everyone who's lost someone recently. You know, it's been a rough couple of weeks. Shout out my cousin. He was in the hospital. He had a really bad asthma attack. He was in the hospital over New Year's, but he's out now. And shout out to the young lady who was in the video, man. I hope she's doing well with her family and her babies. You know, shout out to all the mothers out there who go through what they go through every day just to give us life, man. The Black woman is really the bringer of life, and I think that gets overlooked so many times. So those are my thoughts, and thanks. Shout out to everybody again on the panel.
Appreciate that, Black Steel. What happened to Tanzan? Well, that's a great question that we've wondered for a couple of years now. We don't know. But my shout out is to Brother Bakari. It's his birthday. So shout out to you. I know if we didn't see Brother Bakari, that means he's having a good time with his family, with his lady, etc. So shout out to you. Happy birthday. Shout out again to Buana. Like I told y'all, I spoke to Buana as the show was beginning. And, well, he sent me a voice note and he told me, you know, he's hanging in there. And thanks for checking in on him. So shout out to Buana on the passing of his mom and her being laid to rest today. And shout out to all of you who was here today, giving good conversations during and staying on topic while we were doing it. I appreciate all of you. And you guys actually make it where I look forward to coming here on a Saturday night to talk with you guys. We'll be back next week. Like Kofi said, join the Discord. Post up your topics on the Shoot the Breeze topics, and they'll be discussed here as well. You could post topics on books and leave an excerpt. It's up to you. But join us and help us make these conversations more robust as we go forward. So until next time, you guys be good. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Koku. If you like what you just heard, we hope you pass along our web address, bittermedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Bitter Medicine Show, Twitter, Bitter Meds, Tumblr, Bitter Meds, Instagram, Bitter Medicine.